And I think we got plenty of lights. So I don't necessarily need to turn the ring light on.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Yeah, I got some pretty good bright lights in here. Matter of fact, I just was a few weeks back, about 3 weeks back, I had to put a new bulb in. So,
This recording?
you want to do the Hulk Hogan first?
You go for it.
Okay.
I'll let you do it.
All right. Hey everybody. Well, it's been a long time, but welcome back to the Square Circle. I got a lot of catching up to do, but we're going to be doing a special episode today on me and James are both pretty, as you can tell by my attire. I got a hat and a shirt. We're going to be doing a video on Hulk Hogan, who recently passed away just some months back, much to the detriment of all of us Hulkamaniacs who are, I mean, it actually bothered me for some days after he died. Matter of fact, maybe to a certain degree, thinking about it, Mike, can still bother me sometimes, but especially right after he died, you know, it was just such a shock.
I think one of the things that got me is we lost Ozzy, and then right on top of that, we lost Hulk Hogan, too.
I mean, we lost two big, I know Ozzy was the 70s
Yeah.
and 80s icon, but we lost two huge 80s icons and icons of pop culture in general. So we was going to discuss the Hulkster today a little bit about some of how what he means to us, some of our favorite matches that he's had over his very long career, and some of the impacts he's had, and even talking about maybe how he broke into the business. I had to look up his trainer last night to make sure I knew who he was, Hiro Matsuda.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And I wanted to talk about his time in Japan too, because if you go back and you look at the stuff that he did in Japan, a lot of people said that Hulk Hogan couldn't wrestle.
That's bullshit.
BS.
That's bullshit. I'll just call it right now. I mean, I could see where people could form that opinion here in America because he didn't do as much technical wrestling, especially in his late 80s on through the 90s. But if you watch his early to mid 80s in America, and then like you were saying, you check out some Japan stuff, and I'm like, he's doing enziguri kicks and
Drop toe holds, flipping arm bars.
Flipping arm bars. It's like, this is the kind of stuff I love to see in wrestling, and I would have loved to have seen Hulk Hogan do this.
Because a lot of Hulk Hogan's critics were always, oh, he was just punch, big boot, leg drop, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand why they didn't let Hulk do the stuff he could do in America.
Right. Well, it's probably a combination of, I would say, probably the promoters. Well, it's probably what seemed to sell to the people.
Yeah.
The people were obviously satisfied with what they saw, so they're like, why do anything else? Promoters were probably like that too. And because of the probably demanding work schedule, Hulk was probably like, I'm gonna try to do the most I can with the least amount of effort so that I can concern myself, because Hogan's finishing move being the leg drop is what probably prompted him to have several back surgeries through the years. And James got, if you, any of y'all in the audience, y'all could attest, you can do your research, you know, just do a little bit of looking up. James and me both have noticed, but Hogan probably shrunk 2 or 3 inches over the years. Easily, if not 4 inches, because he was easily 6'7" to 6'8". By the time he passed, he was probably 6'3" or 4. And it's like, yeah, so
because what, 40 years of dropping that leg compressed his spine.
It compressed his spine, yes, especially at the lower to mid range of that, so the back. So,
here's kind of how I wanted to do it. I wanted to discuss like his early years in WWF.
Okay.
Then WCW, his return to the WWF in the later years. But give me 1 second, I'm gonna make sure it's still going.
Okay.
Yep, still going. Okay. So,
why don't we talk about how Hogan, before he got into WWF, let's talk about his initial break-in, because obviously he was going to be in a rock band, and I looked that up last night. It was called Ruckus. And, if you always notice, there's a music video of Real American where Hogan is playing the guitar. And then, if you always notice, when Hogan was in WCW, the NWO, he would always be playing
that belt.
He playing the belt like a guitar. So he obviously had an aptitude for music. So, and
I know he could play bass. I don't know if he could actually play guitar.
Yeah.
But I knew he was a pretty good bass player.
And well, he obviously fate intervened, I guess you could say, but he has started finding a love for wrestling. So he was hanging out with the wrestler, hanging out at a place where the wrestlers was at and trying to break in.
Yeah.
And so back in those days, and to be honest, I don't know if we should be quite that extreme about what we're about to talk about with his training, but I could understand why they were so extreme. Because if you look at the quality of wrestling now, James here keeps up with wrestling a whole lot more than I do, because I just can't get back into it too much because it's so, I don't know, it's just like
To me, in a lot of aspects, they've given up story for style.
Yeah,
Now,
that's a good way to put it.
I do like the modern product. I'm not as big on the modern product as I was, say, in the 80s and the 90s, as I was as a younger person. But
in the very early
in the
2000s.
very early 2000s, because that is my critique of it. They've given up story for style.
Yes, very much so. And well, obviously, I believe it was actually superstar Billy Graham. Was it Billy Graham that actually, or it was somebody? Hogan finally got around to being told. I think it was Billy Graham, came a little bit later. To get around to being introduced to Hiro Matsuda, and now, as legend has it, coming from Hulk Hogan's mouth. Now, this is something we've already discussed too. Is as much as we love Hulk Hogan, the man who played Hulk Hogan has had a bit of a controversial history through the years, as far as
tended to embellish and stuff like that.
He embellishes and exaggerates, and it kind of seems like maybe even outright lies.
Yeah.
But if you think about the kind of world the wrestling world is, with everything being a work, being story driven, pushing the boundaries of believability, maybe stuff like that.
Especially when Hogan was coming up, because they lived and breathed kayfabe at that point.
Yes, big time. And kayfabe is a pro wrestling term for any of y'all that don't know. It just means it's put on.
Yeah.
It's a work. They're cooperating with each other. So like if they're enemies in the ring, they try to keep that persona going outside the ring.
They're protecting the story and the character.
Yeah. So Hogan, his first day of training with Hiro Matsuda, he says that Hiro Matsuda broke his leg, broke his shin. So I think there's probably a little bit of truth and a little bit of falsehood in this. I think Hogan's embellishing and exaggerating it, probably to greatly expound on it, his character, his, break into wrestling. But I think there's some truth to it. More than likely, it could have been a small fracture and probably a bad sprain on the ankle or the leg.
And if something like that did happen, I would not be all that surprised, because I've heard people who trained in the Hart Dungeon.
Yes.
The Undertaker, who trained with, I can't remember who he trained
I
with.
can't remember either.
It may have been Ray Stevens or somebody like that. But trainers in the old days, they were infamous for stretching and basically what they were trying to do. And the Undertaker said this is they would take your money and they would do everything they could to make you quit.
Yeah. It sounds like very dirty business.
Yeah.
And it kind of is in a way, but at the same time, they're protecting a business that is, very much entertainment and a work that is always being looked at and scrutinized, so they try to protect it as much as absolutely possible. So they called it the snake pit where Hulk Hogan went to train with Hiro Matsuda. So that was the snake pit he went to. That name right there should tell you everything you need to know.
It's like Stu Hart's Dungeon,
and it's in Stu Hart's Dungeon.
The name will tell you.
The name will tell you everything you need to know. You're going to go through some serious punishment. But when they trained wrestlers, they actually really trained them to wrestle for real, or to a certain point. But when they get into the ring, they cooperate with each other. So Hogan and other wrestlers that were brought up at that time training, they actually know how to wrestle you. They actually, or they look a good way, but they cooperate.
Yeah.
Like the infamous Belzer case that we might cover a little bit later, where Hogan, he wasn't trying to actually hurt Belzer. I don't think. Belzer was just such a skinny ass man that Hogan, any kind of pressure he put on him, he just passed out.
Yeah, he was out cold.
So
and that was the thing, and that was any wrestler, especially back in the old days. Do not ever tell a wrestler that wrestling is fake. Never.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scripted, it's choreographed, it's that, but don't say it's fake, because even wrestlers today, the damage that they put on their bodies is ridiculous.
It is very ridiculous. basically using the term fake to a wrestler is almost akin, might be a little of an extreme example, but it's almost akin to a racial slur.
Yeah.
To a wrestler, so to speak.
I think one of the, to me, especially in modern day terms, one of the worst injuries I've seen was, I don't know if you saw this or not, when Cody Rhodes had that pectoral tear, and he still went and wrestled a match in Hell in a Cell with Seth Rollins.
I haven't seen the match, but I think I've seen like a part where it looked bad.
Yeah,
terrible.
And here's the thing: is he hit a cutter in that match, and when you do the cutter, the person takes a flat back bump. Cody said he almost passed out with how bad that hurt. So, and that's one thing about this covers all wrestling to me. It's never fake. People are getting hurt.
No, it's never fake. I mean, you wouldn't go up and tell a stunt man who, for a movie, like, well, you're fake. It's like, okay, well, the movie is entertainment.
Exactly.
It's a make-believe story, but the stunts and the acting that goes into making this is
very real and very dangerous.
That's very real, and it's very dangerous. Matter of fact, there's been stuntmen, not get off, they've been killed.
Yeah.
So they've died for that kind of stuff.
I mean, would you, because Burt Reynolds did a lot of his own stunts, would you have had the balls to walk up to Burt Reynolds and say you're fake?
Exactly.
No, because Burt Reynolds would have popped you out in your face.
Yeah, exactly. So, calling a wrestler fake, it would have still been an offense, but it wouldn't have been nowhere near as much of an offense if you'd gone up to a wrestler and say, I just think y'all guys are in there pretending.
Yeah.
I mean, they still would have been like, oh, you might have got a tap on the shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even a little slight slap on the face still, but
David Schultz and John Stossel.
The David Schultz, and John Stossel one is probably the most infamous one. It's just like, whoo, I mean, yeah, you just don't do that kind of stuff. But you want to cover his early WWF years?
Well, I wanted to kind of before Hulkamania took off, he had actually had a stint in the WWF with Vince Senior.
Yeah, and I think it was technically still called the
WWF,
the Worldwide Wrestling
And
Federation.
the reason why he didn't really last long at that point is because he went to do Rocky 3.
Yeah.
And Vince Senior got pissed off, so he actually went to work for Vern Gagne's AWA, where he was mostly a heel. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he won their championship from Nick Bockwinkel, but then had to drop it right back to him or something like that. They did not use him properly at all in the AWA.
Didn't he also go to Japan for a little while also after that too? Yeah. Well, and we have to also Vince Senior, as opposed to his son Vince McMahon, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. He was more in line with the old school kind of gangster mafia almost approach to protecting and respecting the wrestling territories, which we have a video planned on Vince McMahon, so we'll talk about
we'll talk about that later.
Well, Vince Senior has to be given credit for the fact that he actually gave Hulk Hogan his name. He actually called him the Hulk, so that is where Hulk Hogan actually came from.
But then you get back into Vince McMahon, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, as we know Vince McMahon, took over the WWF. He bought it from his father, and then he started his expansion.
Yes.
And he brought Hulk Hogan back into the fold. Now, there's always been this big debate, conversation, blah, 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 that it was Vince McMahon who created Hulkamania, and Hulk Hogan was just the right guy at the right time. My feeling on that is, I look at it as almost like Frankenstein.
Maybe a little bit.
You have the mad scientist, who is definitely Vince McMahon.
Oh, definitely.
But everything had to be perfect for the creature to come to life.
Yes.
If you had changed one element about, wrestling and Hulk Hogan and stuff like that, I don't think we would know wrestling as the juggernaut that it is today.
Yes. No.
Nobody else, in my opinion, could have taken not just the WWF, but professional wrestling as a whole on his shoulders and ran with it like Terry Bollea did.
No, nobody.
Nobody else could have done that.
And, we also had I know people talk about how popular Steve Austin is, and he has his place in history too, but Steve didn't, because of an injury he had suffered, he was not able to go as long as Hogan was able to go. Hogan went, he went from the mid-'80s to the early '90s carrying the wrestling world
Yeah.
basically on his shoulders, and so it's like because he, as you can tell, this is the famous match he had with Warrior in which he actually he did to Warrior what Andre did to him,
Yeah.
passed the torch, but they had to strip, but because the Warrior wasn't mature enough or
Mhm.
respected the business enough. They had to take the title off of him and actually re-give it back to Hogan.
Yeah.
To let Hogan
And
carry
that
it
was
again.
that was the thing with WrestleMania 6. Hogan was trying to find that next
Yeah.
person because he knew he couldn't go forever,
No, he couldn't go forever because he was trying
But-
to also break into the entertainment world.
but no one could keep up with him.
Nobody could keep up with him, right? The Warrior, if the Warrior had had any level of respect or maturity for the wrestling business, he could have reigned champion for a full year or two.
And that was a lot of people's critique of the Warrior. He did not respect the business.
He didn't respect the business not one bit, and it's just like if you don't respect the business, you're in.
Yeah.
But
So what? Going as far as going back to the WWF, the 80s to the early 90s. What was it that attracted you to Hulk Hogan? What brought you into the wrestling fold at that point, or were you even watching wrestling at that point?
I was such a small kid at that time, but I remember I had these little thumb wrestling figures, and it's like I think I kind of maybe probably heard the Hulk Hogan or seen it. I think it was maybe when I was around in kindergarten, first grade-ish, maybe when I started to maybe be a little familiar
Yeah.
with wrestling and first to break it in. Hulk Hogan just kind of seemed like he's this big muscled up superhero,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
that's kind of what I think pulled a lot of people into Hulk Hogan, and
It was that charisma, that charm, that look.
yeah, that look, the charm, the charisma, wanting to see Hulk Hogan go in there and beat the bad guys
Yeah.
and things like that, So yeah, that's what I would say was one of the things that kind of pulled me into Hulk Hogan there at wrestling and kind of
Now,
early on.
with me, I was exposed to Mid-South wrestling before I was exposed to WWF
Yeah.
and Hulk Hogan. So that's kind of why I'm almost what they call a wrestling purist. It was good technical matches, good storytelling, stuff like that. I think I got pulled into watching Hulk Hogan around 89, 90. I was relatively young still at that point. I was like 8 or 9 years old. 7, 8, 6. I was young. I was a kid. But it was like watching Saturday Night's Main Event, and you see Hulk Hogan, and like, whoa!
Yeah.
And it was that kind of stuff that drew me in. And then you get cable, and you start watching the stuff on USA, and you see all that stuff. And it was really, I was kind of a fair weather wrestling fan, like watching the Mid-South, like, oh yeah, this is cool. But then you see Hulk Hogan and the WWF and the glitz and the glamour. And that's really what drew me into really becoming a professional wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say all day, every day, till my last breath, The Undertaker is my guy.
Yeah, he's your guy.
He's my guy. But what really got me into wrestling was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Well, my top two favorite wrestlers, and we've covered this before, is Bret Hart and then Hulk Hogan. And Bret, because I love the technical aspect of wrestling, and I love all the holds and reversals and things. But Hulk is on there because of the larger-than-life persona, the hero, the guy that saves the day, the guy that's got you pumped up. He's an American. His song, everything is just built you up into the story to see the good guy win and beat the bad guy. You know that. So those are the two things that could pull into wrestling. And I don't care what anybody says. Hulk Hogan is the greatest seller of all time.
Oh yeah.
Nobody. Some might come close, but Hulk Hogan can sell better than anybody. That's why he pulls people in to the matches and the drama, whether he's a babyface or heel. He pulls you in to either love him or hate him.
Yeah.
And he can play them both. And that's what makes Hogan so good, is that he's able to play a good heel as well as he is a babyface.
Now, what was the WWF, the WWF at the time, his first run there, what would you say was your favorite Hulk Hogan match?
In his first run?
In his first run.
Ooh.
Like, say, mid-80s up till, like, what, 93, 94 when he left,
I got a list I made of all the matches,
Yeah.
but let me see. I would say that my favorite match from his initial, matter of fact, his initial first run is probably going to be with Andre the Giant.
WrestleMania 3.
WrestleMania
Yeah.
3. It's probably going to be with Andre the Giant. That's going to be probably my favorite match from that run. And I have to even give credit to the rematch they had a little less than a year later, close to a year later, because they had a huge televised match on, I think it was on a Saturday night's main event. And this is what led into the storyline going into WrestleMania 4 because, Andre beat Hogan in this, but it turns out the referee was paid by $1 Million Man and all that kind of stuff. But it was, I think, it was like the ratings were insane because they're coming off of their huge WrestleMania 3 match, and this is a rematch between these two. So I would probably say his feud and his matches with Andre the Giant probably at that time.
I have two, because both are just excellent matches, and for totally different reasons.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry. Here's another one. I also like his match with King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania 2. That's a great match.
Of a crappy pay-per-view, that was probably one of the best matches.
Yeah, it's one of the, unfortunately, it turns into being, I could see what they were going for, and they had some good matches on that card, but the idea of doing it from 3 different locations, wow, it's like, like you said, it basically turned into a crappy pay-per-view. But, it's just like, but that steel cage match between Bundy and Hogan was actually really good. And Savage, too.
There's a spot I want to talk to about, and then I'll get into my two favorite. I can't remember what event it was, but it was a cage match between Big Boss Man and Hulk Hogan. Big Boss Man had climbed over the top of the cage because it was still those blue cages where you had to get out. Hulk Hogan climbed up, and they did a superplex spot from nearly the top of the cage.
I think I've seen that. It's like,
I remember watching that. I was like, holy shit! Because just the way they crashed and the impact, it looked so devastating for both of them.
And even though we just talked about it, but about how Hogan, didn't showcase the technical aspect in America as much, you saw it from time to time. That would be one of them.
Yeah.
Because when you do a superplex off the top rope, much less off the top of the cage, you've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to control how, and and we're talking about, this is the Big Boss Man when he was big.
Yeah.
And
big old boy.
And they're both big guys. We're talking like probably a combined weight of 700 pounds or so coming off the top of the cage.
And I remember like they were laying there selling, which I know it's probably beyond selling because I know their bodies has got to be just like crapped out at that point. Hulk Hogan almost does like this Undertaker pop-up and then just falls back over to the side.
Yeah.
But that image is just burned in my mind. That is one of the best spots that I've ever seen Hulk Hogan do.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the best spots.
Yeah.
I would actually say that him body slamming Andre at WrestleMania 3 was another spot. And what some people don't, and how he tore his biceps. I don't know if it was on the first attempt. I almost think it was because he wrestled through the match with tore biceps. It's like, and he's still, when the match is over, he's still flexing and doing all this. It's like with tore biceps. He must have not have torn his too bad because.
I mean, you got to think at that point in time, he was probably working off pure adrenaline.
Yeah, probably. And it's just like, good Lord have mercy.
But definitely, I would say one of my favorite Hulk Hogan matches, WrestleMania 3, without a doubt. Him and Andre.
Yeah, definitely.
Great match. I think the only match that might have been on par was the Ricky Steamboat Randy Savage match.
Yeah, Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man, that was definitely one of the greatest technical matches of all time, actually.
And then you go a couple of years down the road, another WrestleMania 5, the Mega Powers explode.
Yeah, the Mega Powers explode. Yeah, that was
And like I said, it was almost like watching two separate matches, but they were both so well done.
Yeah, very well done. I know I've come to recently change my opinion because you hear about Macho Man and how he details his matches out so incredibly detailed, and then you hear about Hogan saying, "We'll call it in the ring, brother," and it's just like I always thought that is so lazy, and maybe there is a little bit of laziness to it, but I've come to the realization that Hogan was also trained old school, and that's how they done things back in those days. They would call it in the ring, and that there is a special flair for doing that because you can have those magical moments that can happen when you call things in the ring.
I think sometimes it's better to go in with an idea.
I would definitely go in with an idea for the high spots for sure.
Because if you're going in with everything just meticulously mapped out and the crowd's not into it, you don't leave room to change it up.
And
But if you're calling it in the ring, you can be like, okay, this isn't working, let's try this. To see if you could elicit that response.
And actually, Hogan did kind of plan some of the high spots. He didn't give it to Andre directly, but he wrote some stuff down about what to do in his match with Andre and gave it to Vince. And obviously Vince gave it to Andre because then Andre started calling the match, started calling the spots. You know, like body slam, leg drop.
I think the reason why Hulk did that, if I remember correctly, is he knew how much in physically bad condition Andre was in.
Yeah.
So he was trying to map out something that would make them look good, but protect Andre at the same time.
Yeah, because he had to really because Andre's back was just he was just in really bad shape.
Because if you look at that match, Hogan takes the brunt of the abuse in that match.
Yeah, he does actually.
And I honestly think that was because he was trying to protect Andre and not make him look weak. Because after when he does body slam, if you look closely at his singlet, you can see that Andre's wearing a back brace. He has this thing that kind of pokes up out from under his singlet, and it's a back brace because he was so immobile at that.
Yeah, he was so immobile, and you can tell that he doesn't move. You know, that Andre of that era didn't move as fast as Andre of the previous, some of the previous, of the previous era because he. Him and Hogan actually had early matches early on many years prior, and Andre could basically chase you down.
Yeah, I think Andre and Hogan had matches in AWA where the roles were reversed. Andre was the good guy and Hogan was the bad guy.
Right. Yeah. Hogan was the heel and Andre was the good guy. Right.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah. What's up?
In your opinion, WWF, when did the wheels kind of start to fall off for Hulk Hogan later?
That's a good point. Well, if we're being honest, I'm not so sure it might have been in very late 91 to early 92, but also around this time is when the steroid stuff started to come about too, which was giving all of pro wrestling
a big black eye.
Especially the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation, more specifically at this time. But I would say so. I think at this point, Hogan has kind of Terry Bollea has become a prima donna, and kind of a man diva, really. Yeah. And even Sid has talked about how he left the WWF because of how much Hogan would cry, and it's just like, so once you get up to such a stardom, it can happen to anybody. You start getting such a elevated ego, and it's happened to others. Steve Austin, he refused to work and dropped the belt to Brock Lesnar. So I mean,
the infamous he took his ball and went home.
Yeah, so it's happened to everybody. So, but I would think it was probably around late 91.
Yeah.
Also, that infamous, where Hogan was, don't know if he was just being an asshole or if he was trying to maybe add something to the story, but when he, Undertaker had pile drived him, and Ric Flair was coming in at that time, and he put a chair in there to add to the effect. Yeah. But you could tell Hogan was in safe hands. Undertaker always knows what he's doing with the tombstone pile driver, and Hogan, he wanted to make sure that he was going to be safe before the match, and as it's being delivered, he goes, "Oh, you got me, brother," and acts like he has a hurt neck, and it's just like, and they go back and rewatch the tape, and his head's everything's fine.
And Mark, he never really badmouthed Hogan, but Mark Calloway, the person, the Undertaker, he never really forgave Hogan for that, and he kind of always held a grudge to it because he did everything he could to protect Hogan.
Yeah.
And Hogan tried to basically make it seem like he injured him.
Yeah.
And
So I don't know if that's one of those. If Hogan was scared that there was somebody else coming up, it was just like, well, Undertaker's a heel, so he's not going to take your spot. I don't know if it was something that the Undertaker was, early on in his career, because he was just 1 year into WWF run.
Yeah.
Or if it was maybe
see, if I remember the story correctly with that, they came to him out of the blue. And it's like, well, we're going to put you in this program with Hogan because at the time, he was the top heel, Hogan's the top babyface.
Yeah, because...
And that was the natural progression.
Yeah, because the way Kane came into the WWF many years later and started taking the Federation by storm with the way his almost indestructible run was basically what the Undertaker was. He was kind of an indestructible force of nature, and he defeated the immortal Hulk Hogan at Survivor Series. But it almost makes you wonder too: was this some sort of a jerkish rib that maybe Hogan was trying to play? And it just didn't go the way I don't know. I mean, it just sounds like such a jackass move on Hogan's part to do that, because even the few days that the Undertaker had the belt, he couldn't even fully enjoy being champion because he was worried about that. And it's just like,
and then I don't remember. I don't know if it was ever the intention that he was supposed to drop it back to Hogan that quickly. What would have been the point?
That's a good point too, because the follow-up event was called Tuesday in Texas, and they had a return match, and Hogan got the belt back
in less than a week. What is the point?
And then it was less than a week, and then not too long after that pay-per-view event, the president of the Federation at the time, Jack Tunney, stripped it back off of Hogan and declared the title vacant, which led to the 1992 Royal Rumble, in which Ric Flair won the title. But so you make a good point there. Was that because, let's just say Hogan never said that, Taker might have held the belt for maybe until the Rumble with the return match with Hogan. I don't know.
And to me, that would have been a better story.
That would have been a little bit better story, yeah.
To me, I think when the wheels really came off of Hulkamania in the WWF.
And of course, he did have a good match at WrestleMania 8 with Sid.
No, that was a trash match.
That was a trash match.
But I don't think you can put that on Hogan's head.
No, maybe not. No.
But to me, I think WrestleMania 9
is
to me really where it kind of started to fall apart.
Yeah, you got a good point there.
Because
I guess you could say the initial falling apart might have been late 91, early 92. And then after he had the trash match with Sid. I mean, the stuff with the Taker, leading up to the stuff with Sid, that was probably the first stage. And you're right about WrestleMania 9. That finished it off.
Because
that finished it.
You could tell the change was coming. It was very obvious there was a change in tone. There was a change in style in wrestling.
Yes.
At the very least in the WWF. And I honestly think at that time the natural progression was Bret Hart.
Yes, because at this point, because the steroid controversy really destroyed wrestling for about 3 to 4 years. It destroyed it in 90. It destroyed it basically for most of 92, 93, 94, and basically 95, which was probably the worst year in wrestling period. But you can look at the lack of people in the audience at WrestleMania 9.
To me, that was probably one of the worst WrestleManias ever.
It was one of the
I remember a lot of the matches from WrestleMania 9, and none of them are for good reasons.
None of them. There was only there may only be one good thing, or maybe one of the very few good things about WrestleMania 9, and that was the fact that Shawn Michaels opened up his third WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Shawn was in the opening match of WrestleMania 7, 8, and 9.
Yeah.
But
I honestly think, because Bret Hart had won the title from Ric Flair.
Yes.
You go into WrestleMania 9, he drops it to Yokozuna. Him dropping it to Yokozuna, I was okay with, because it could have set up a further story.
Yeah, definitely.
But for some reason, how did Hulk Hogan get
all mixed into this?
Yeah.
Yes, and then
a lot of people say he went to Vince let me do it. Why? I can understand you wanting to keep your spot, but let someone else run with the ball for a minute.
The only way I could see this working potentially is if what Bret Hart says, I would believe, because all wrestlers, I'm sure, exaggerate the truth. to some point.
Yeah.
But Brett says that him and Hogan were supposed to have a big match
Yeah.
at the King of the Ring, and it was basically him and Hogan both were, according to Brett, they took pictures of them both at like tug of war over the belt, and Hogan, according to Brett, said, "I'll return the favor, brother," or something, and well, that favor was never returned because Hogan is notorious. Hogan's not petty up to your face like Shawn Michaels was.
Yeah.
But Hogan would play politics behind your back with Vince and stuff like that, and because he was always looking after himself more than anything.
Yeah.
And that's
and I honestly think that was Hulk Hogan's downfall.
Yeah.
In the ring, especially during the 80s and early 90s, Hulk Hogan
he reigned supreme.
And I credit Hulk Hogan.
But I think we do have to credit the steroid stuff is what really led to this. All the big muscular guys, they were looked down on bad for some years, and Vince was having to change gears. That probably is what prompted Vince to do the new generation. That's probably where the new generation came from.
Because you started seeing a lot of smaller guys like Shawn, like
Brett. You saw some big guys, but most of them were around that probably 5'10" to 6'2" range, and like Bret Hart, Shawn. Now you did see some big guys like Razor and Diesel,
Taker.
You did see some big guys, but they weren't like these.
Diesel just jacked.
Yeah, they weren't just like super jacked and ripped like Warrior, Warlord, Hogan. All these other guys.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like you could even see a physical transformation with Randy Savage.
Yes, actually you can.
Because you can honestly see, because like you look at the WrestleMania 3, he was a lot slimmer. He wasn't as bulk. But as time progressed, you could see his body getting more and more bulk. And he was like at his biggest in WCW.
Yeah, he was. He did get real big in WCW. So now that we've covered up his departure from the World Wrestling Federation, I guess we could cover his in his going into WCW now.
Yeah.
Because
this is part 2 going into WCW. Oh man.
I mean, it was a big. It was a big push for WCW because they were kind of, they were a second-rate wrestling organization. If we just want to be honest. At this point, they weren't a big contender. They were no worries for World Wrestling Federation yet. But Hogan coming into the play is what really gave them a boost.
It did. It really did. I'll give credit where credit's due with Hulk Hogan. He gave them the push they needed to make them a legitimate contender with Vince and the WWF.
And it's no knock on a lot of the wrestlers because Sting was not a second-rate wrestler.
No, absolutely.
He's not a second-rate. Ric Flair wasn't second-rate. The wrestlers they weren't. But the organization and the way it was being worked at the time, that was what was more or less second-rate.
I think
the bookers and those.
Eric Bischoff gets a lot of shit from a lot of wrestling purists. But if you go back and you look at the WCW, there was so much garbage that he had to weed out and weed through to actually start making it a legitimate, respectable wrestling community. One of the worst people who ever ran WCW, in my opinion, was Jim Herd. I don't know if you know much about him.
I'm not sure. I may have heard of him, but
he ran WCW for a while. He basically ran Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express out of WCW because
did he run Jim Ross off too?
Yes.
Damn.
Because he would come up with these stupid gimmicks. This tag team that was called the Ding Dongs.
Oh my God.
They wore bells and shit to the ring, and then Jim Cornette was talking about one time in one of his videos about how he tried to create this tag team called the Hunchbacks. And Jim Herd was like, yeah, you roll them on one, you roll them on the side, you can't pin them. And Ole Anderson was like, you know what, put them in the ring, I'll slap a submission hold on them and make them fucking tap out.
Yeah, right.
That type of stuff. But it was just bad. And then Eric Bischoff comes in after maybe Bill Watts. Bill Watts had made some improvements, but they still weren't really drawing much money.
What Eric Bischoff did with WCW was he was a genius when it came to television appearances.
Yes.
Now, as far as storytelling and booking, not really, but he learned a little bit as he went on.
Yeah.
But he was great as far as how to make it look presentable for television.
Yeah.
And he, as a matter of fact, to be perfectly honest, I think he's probably better than Vince McMahon in that regard. You know,
in some
you know,
aspect, yeah, especially
now
because he came up with the idea of doing live Monday night shows because WWF would tape Raw.
yes,
And Eric Bischoff was like, how can I be different? They're taped, let's go live. So he went into Ted Turner's office
Yeah.
and Ted Turner was like, give him 2 hours on Monday Night Live and you know,
yeah.
and
And Eric also had the luxury of being funded by a billionaire. at the
He
time.
did. He
Yes,
really
and
did.
He took great advantage of it.
he did.
And but
To the detriment of, at times, of WCW and Ted Turner, yes.
yes, he did. Yeah.
But
getting
the
back,
coup he got with Hulk Hogan, it was, at the time, definitely money well spent.
oh, definitely. And one thing that they did with Hogan when they brought him in, and this might have been about the only way they could have got Hogan to come in, was they gave Hogan creative control, which was one of the worst things.
Yeah.
You can. I don't care who the wrestler is. It doesn't matter if it's even some of the most selfless wrestlers. At some point, they're going to realize, I got creative control. I really don't like this. We're going to do something different. And with Hulk Hogan, at this point, still with this real big, kind of, ego that he, does, has, and being the Babe Ruth of wrestling.
Yeah.
You don't think he's going to take advantage of that? Oh,
And
boy.
here's the thing, is a lot of wrestlers, I've heard a lot of wrestlers say it, I've heard a lot of bookers and promoters say it, there are times you can say no in the wrestling business.
Yeah.
You can say no. There are, if you think something's a bad idea and it's going to be detrimental to your career and your character, you can say no a lot of times. But to give someone full-blown creative
It's
control is a bad idea.
Very bad idea, because it leads into some very bad points that we'll cover here real soon. And because Hogan, he comes in the WCW, he wrestles Ric Flair in the
Yeah.
summer of '94. It's a big thing. He beats Ric Flair for the title, and that's his first reign as champion. I think it lasted well over a year.
Yeah.
it was
Which-
well over a year.
A lot of people criticize WCW for that. I don't.
I don't
If you're
really know.
going to bring Hulk Hogan in,
He's got to win the
he's
title.
got to win the title. You cannot bring someone like Hulk Hogan in and put him in a program with just some half-ass no-name wrestler.
No.
Especially if he's still coming in, red, yellow, Hulk Hogan, good guy. You got to put him in the main event, the title hunt, right away, because you have to make that impact.
You're more knowledgeable. I know some. I know a nice little bit of WCW, but you know more than I do. But I think at the time, I think Ric Flair was the champion.
Yeah.
But him and maybe Vader were like the two top WCW heels.
Yes.
So it had to be one of those two.
Mhm.
That Hulk Hogan would have to fight, and it would have to just really be the guy that was the champion, which
Yeah.
was the Nature Boy. So
I mean, at the time, the Nature Boy was the champion. Oh, excuse me. But if you didn't want to put him directly in the title picture, yes, you had to put him with Vader. You had to put him with someone who was a legitimate threat and a contender.
yeah, definitely, because you're not gonna, like you're saying, you can't put him with some second-rate wrestler
No.
or third-rate wrestler. You can't put him with a nobody.
And no one's going to want to watch Sting at that point in time. No one's going to want to watch Sting and Hulk Hogan. You're not going to want to see the two biggest baby faces on the planet go at each other right off. You're not going to want to see
The
that.
only way you can do anything with Sting and Hogan at that point is if they form an alliance
Exactly.
with each other, and then have one of them turn heel on the other one. Probably at the time, if they would initially do it, it would have been Sting turn
Yeah.
heel. But Sting was basically WCW's Hulk Hogan
Yes.
until Hulk Hogan came along
Yeah,
in a roundabout
really.
way. So, but yeah, and then of course Hogan wins the title in was it July of '94? I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think like Great American Bash or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, it's Great American Bash because that's the event where he later turned heel in the
No,
infamous.
no, that was Bash at the Beach.
Oh, Bash at the Beach. My
Yeah.
bad. Okay, but
Close enough, though.
yeah, close enough. But he reigns champion. '94 wasn't too bad of a year for wrestling. I mean, in my opinion, '93 was kind of a bad year for wrestling.
Yeah.
So '94, in my opinion, kind of raised it up a little
Mhm.
bit. But then we get to '95. It's like it's like.
And both promotions were shit.
Yeah, it's like it's like 91, dip, 92 maybe, dip again 93, we're up a little bit about 94, drop 95, '95 it is the worst year
of
for professional wrestling
because you have the new generation on the WWF side, and you have like Hulk Hogan and that god awful Dungeon of Doom stable.
Oh yeah,
that was the dumbest.
If Vince McMahon, if Vince McMahon had control of the Dungeon of Doom storyline, it probably would have worked out a lot better. Maybe. But yeah, we also talk about an era of wrestling where hokey 95. You see, the new generation stuff really kicked off in '93.
Yeah.
Very late. I would say late '92 to early '93 is when the new generation kicked off. But by the time we get to '95 is probably when the new generation, the hokiness and the campiness of the new generation was
at its height,
absolute height, and it's just almost, some of it's basically laughable.
Yeah.
You know, what the stuff Vince was doing, and like you were saying with the Dungeon of Doom and WCW, what they were doing, and it's just like the whole thing is just like, really, guys? This is just so hokey and campy.
Because if you look at the Dungeon of Doom, you had the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
You had the Zodiac, who was Ed Leslie, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. The Yeti.
And the Giant came in, and was he part of it too?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and to me, that was the only legitimate threat that you had with the Dungeon of Doom was the Giant. And I honestly think they handled like his debut and whatnot piss poorly. Keep him away from that garbage, but make him a legitimate threat to Hulk Hogan.
Yes, definitely.
And then you had Hulk Hogan.
And you know what? That would have fed off, if they had done it right, that would have fed off the idea, because at the time there was talk of him that he was supposed to be Andre's son.
Yeah.
And in the storyline, that would have been perfect if they had done it right.
Because they could have done something along the lines of he's coming in to, avenge his dad or something like that.
Right.
But, I mean, they almost mentioned that he was Andre's son in passing, and he was more booked with the Dungeon of Doom and that.
Yeah, there's more of a passing thing. It's like if y'all had really leaned into this, like Vince probably would have. You see, this is where Eric Bischoff's weakness is. It's not good booking. Well, it's not good storytelling. It's not good, So, but he, if they had leaned into that, that would have been a great story for Hulk Hogan to have done with him. I'm here to avenge my dad. I'm going to destroy you, Hulkamania forever. And it's just like, that would have been great.
And then you get into...
Well, we move into 95 and move through 95, and then we get into 96, and I know the Giant won the title. I think it was in 96, and then Hulk Hogan. At this point, Hogan comes in riding pretty high in WCW at the beginning,
but it dropped real quick.
It dropped very fast, and Hulk Hogan's stardom at this point. The red and yellow Hulk Hogan in 96 up until this point has that flame.
It's a parody of itself.
That's probably a good way to put it. It's basically a parody of itself. It's
because I'll give you a prime example of how overbooked Hulk Hogan was. I think it was a cage match at Uncensored 96 in WCW. It was like a 3-tiered cage where you had Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan on a team, and the objective was they had to fight down the levels that were stacked with the Dungeon of Doom and the Horsemen.
Oh my goodness!
So it was like 8 people, and Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage had to fight down this cage and like pin one of the members of the Horsemen or something like that to win the match. So you have 2 people versus 8.
Yeah.
In what legitimate world is the 2 people going to come out winning?
Right. Exactly.
And they still booked Hulk Hogan and Macho Man to win. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Macho Man. I like Hulk Hogan.
Right.
But no, that is overbooking. That is dumb.
Exactly.
And I honestly think by that point in time, Hulk Hogan had been so exposed and overbooked and overused that if he didn't change, something was going, his career was done.
There's almost nothing left to milk from Hulkamania at this point. So now we get to the point where we have to flip the script now. There was talk of turning Hogan heel. Hogan was opposed to it at first. Mm-hmm. But then he comes back because of something that happens. Kevin Nash. Well, let's use the WWF names at first. Diesel and Razor Ramon. Razor first. He left first. Then Diesel followed suit. They left WWF for better contracts with the WCW.
More money, less dates.
More money, less dates, less of a workload. Almost anybody's going to take it.
Yeah.
Especially at this time. So they go to WCW as the Outsiders, called the Outsiders, and they start they start messing around and reigning terror there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes to the.
Did you see that spot where he jackknifed Bischoff through the table?
Yes.
That was so just looking. I remember watching that on a Nitro because they replayed it. It was like a pay-per-view on Sunday, and then they replayed it on Nitro. They showed that spot. I was like, ugh!
Yeah, that was, and what made the Outsiders so menacing, the two of the founding members of the NWO, what will become, but was that they would do stuff out in the parking lot, out in the things.
Yeah.
Where I remember where Kevin Nash took old poor Rey Mysterio
And lawn darted him into
the thing. It's just like, oh my dear God.
That I watched that spot today from time to time, and I'm like, that takes a lot of trust.
Yes, it does.
Like, that takes a lot of trust. Rey Mysterio has to. He's literally putting his life in Kevin Nash's hands.
Yeah, because Kevin Nash is like damn near 7 feet tall. Rey Mysterio is like what, 5'6"?
5'6". He's
Yeah,
not big. And at that time, he was only like 150.
Yeah,
It was like when he was real small.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like you're saying, he really has to have a lot of trust in Kevin at this point. And yeah, so there was a lot of that going on, and then leading into this Bash at the Beach match where it was Sting and Macho and
Luger.
They were especially Sting and Luger, vintage WCW guys.
Mm-hmm.
And with Macho, who's become a pretty good vintage WCW too, going up against the Outsiders with a third man, that they've talked about. And it's looking like the Outsiders are getting the better of the new guys. At this point, out comes Hogan in the traditional red and yellow. Nobody has a freaking clue. This is like Superman coming to help the Justice League, and then Superman turns on everybody, and because Hogan, he gets in there, the Outsiders go, they leave the ring, and then Hogan,
Savage is laid out.
Yeah, Savage is laid out, and Hogan just drops that leg on him. It's just like, what the shit is going on?
And the one of the things that I remember most is the trash.
There's two things. The absolute deafening silence of the crowd at first. The crowd at first, they're going to let it be known, but at first they are just deafening.
Yeah.
The silence was deafening because at first when he dropped those two leg drops, it's just like the shock.
The crowd was.
The shock value is just unreal. And then, like you said, the trash. Trash comes. It was like
I had never seen that before.
I would not be surprised. Security had to really have that in hell no, because they probably could. I wouldn't be surprised if they came this close to a full-blown fucking riot.
That honestly,
if you think about
that would have been the closest you had seen to one of those full-blown riots that you used to see back in the 80s.
Yes.
In the Mid-South days, that heat that guys
yes.
like Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express could generate.
And and Ric Flair and some of these other big-time
deals.
That's
the first time you'd legitimately seen that in years.
And at this point, two things have happened. Not too far from each other, and two different organizations that have ushered in a completely that have started the ushering in of a completely new generation of wrestling now, or a new era of wrestling. Stone Cold Steve Austin's winning of the '96 King of the Ring, and Hulk Hogan's historic, gigantic heel turn at the Bash at the Beach '96. And
now, do you remember? I don't know. Do you remember who originally was supposed to be the third man?
I may have heard, but I can't think of it.
Sting. It was
originally
supposed to be Sting.
Yeah, you're right.
But then Hogan, initially, Hogan was, he was against the heel turn, but then he started to see, he just wasn't getting that reaction that, Hulk Hogan thing.
He wasn't getting the baby.
He wasn't getting that again. So he called Eric Bischoff to his house in Tampa, and he was talking to Bischoff, and he was like, well, who was supposed to do this? Well, we're going to use Sting. He's like, let me do it. That was he said, let me do this. Let me run with this.
And I think that didn't they also were they thinking about Sting as a backup in case Hogan decided to back out of being heel? Was that the reason?
Part of it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But again, it was Sting was going to make that transition too, because again, he saw, his ultimate good guy, Surfer Sting.
Yeah.
He kind of saw the writing on the wall that character was getting stale.
Yeah.
The same way Hulk Hogan saw that Hulkamania had gotten stale. So it was kind of like, at the time, they both decided to reinvent themselves. And what a lot of people don't realize is it was Scott Hall that planted the seeds for Steve Borden and that look. Because he was like, showed him the Crow or something like that, and he was like, this is what you should become. So it was Scott Hall that helped to create the Crow Sting look.
Which was not Sting so much turning heel, but he became an anti-hero.
And a vigilante.
You know, which is kind of what Steve Austin became in a sense. It's kind of a similar kind of thing. Because Steve was a heel, but then he turned into more of an anti-hero kind of thing. A rebel without a cause thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so...
But either way, whether or not Sting was going to be good guy, vigilante, bad guy, whatever, that progression of look was going to take place nonetheless, because you could kind of start to see it in Sting's look, because he got rid of the blonde hair, he got rid of the flat top, he let his natural hair start growing out, his hair started to get longer, so you could kind of start to see the changes starting to take place, and the change in appearance.
Yeah.
Before he became the Crow Sting.
Right. And with Hogan now being the third man revealed, and with the NWO, the New World Order now being fully influxed and fully, come about, Hogan and Nash and Hall, those three they had what seemed to be just seamless chemistry working
Mm-hmm.
with each other as heels. The black and white promos they did was just really cool and just really revolutionary at the time. And they would say things like, "This was brought to you by the New World Order," and all this. It was just this was one of the greatest times to be a pro wrestling fan at this point. It was just outside of I would say the mid to late 80s. Mm-hmm. This is the other time where it was great to be a pro wrestling fan, was this right here. And
with me, I'll be honest, 95 really turned me off of wrestling, both promotions. But then, I remember, because I had kind of kept up with them, and I remember, the whole NWO thing was kicking off, because I liked Diesel, I liked Razor when they were in the WWF. Razor, Diesel, Shawn, Bret, Taker.
Yeah.
If it didn't really involve one of those guys, I didn't pay much attention to it.
It was not really even worth watching too much.
And then when Kevin Nash and Scott Hall jumped ship, I'm like, okay. So I kind of started paying attention to WCW again, because I had really just, with all that over there. I'm like, okay, well, let's see where this goes. And then I remember they were building up to Bash at the Beach and who's the third man and all that stuff. And I remember I remember this distinctly. I was in the kitchen getting me something to drink, and my sister was watching Nitro, and I was like, well, tell me whoever the third man is, if they bring it up. And she was like, it was Hulk Hogan. I'm like, are you kidding me? I charged in there watching this, and I couldn't believe it. And that's what got, and I remember because they showed a clip of it on Nitro, and the first thing I noticed is what you said, just the shock, awe, and silence.
Yeah.
And then the way they just started chucking trash into the ring.
They even hit Mean Gene in the head, with the trash, and it's just like,
oh, this got interesting.
Very fast, yeah. And Hogan had, he became one of the greatest heels of all time.
Yes.
In 1996, and it was just like, he was actually Pro Wrestling Illustrated's most hated wrestler of the year in '96, and for good reason. And it's just like, and then at the Hog Wild pay-per-view, he beats the Giant for the world title. So, and then they notoriously, obviously, covered it with the NWO spray paint over the belt, because it was like a takeover of the World Championship Wrestling from the NWO.
I think here's what I thought about when Hulk Hogan turned heel. I think that people were legitimately felt like they had been double crossed.
Yeah.
Wrestling fans as a whole felt like they had been double crossed and duped all these years because Hogan, even though his popularity had waned by that point and Hulkamania had run stale, he was still Hulk Hogan. You knew Hulk Hogan was always going to do the right thing no matter what. And then he comes out, he drops that damn leg on Randy Savage, and the whole wrestling world collapsed as in one fell swoop, in one motion.
Well, and not only did he do that not only did he drop that leg, but he gave a scathing promo to the crowd afterwards, and to the, it's just like, man, a scathing promo, and it was was actually a really good promo to cut with Hall.
Because he's honestly, Hulk Hogan said he legitimately let some of his real feelings out in that promo.
Some of the best promos probably come from people's real feelings, and
because he said that is how he felt. He felt like he didn't turn on the fans turned on him.
Almost like a die Rocky my sentiment. Not as much, but people were kind of turning against the Hulkamania. They were just, people were just tired of it because it was just it had way overstayed its welcome at this point. But like you said just a while ago though, about it's like people really felt betrayed. Yeah. Betrayed because even though they didn't like Hogan very much anymore because it just his popularity, they still would, like you said,
they expected him to do the right thing.
Like Superman or Captain America, they would expect that you would at least do the right thing. Yeah. But at this point, no. Hogan, he goes completely bad. I mean,
as bad can get in pro wrestling.
And he really, and then this to me also showcases Hogan's versatility.
Yeah.
He is able to play he's able to play a babyface like a babyface is supposed to be played. And then he's able to play a heel, a villain, like a villain is supposed to be played. Because Hogan would do all the villain stuff. He would do something. He would always go up the corner. He would do it in the corner like, no, please don't do it. And he'd do real sneaky shit.
And by this point in time, like I was old enough to know, what was a work, what wasn't. Blah.
Yeah.
So I knew it was a work and everything, or as at that time, scripted was the work. I'll never use the word fake when it comes to pro wrestling. I knew it was scripted, but I literally, with a passion, hated Hulk Hogan at that point because I was one of those fans that felt so betrayed.
Yeah, exactly. The fans, just absolutely just feel completely torn, and it's just like, just hating Hulk Hogan for what has happened. And that just shows you at this point, even though most people would realize that wrestling is, it's put on.
Yeah.
But it would still, because Hogan and because a lot of these guys knew how, they were trained the old way, they knew how to kayfabe, they knew how to sell and pull you into the story, irregardless. And this is like, and Hogan would just do dastardly things. And he held on to the title for a year, and it's just until he finally lost it for, unfortunately, just a matter of days to Luger. But he, and then when that happened, when Hogan, because he was such a dastardly heel, hanging on to the belt, and probably, he probably got himself intentionally disqualified sometimes.
Yeah, he did.
To keep the belt. Because, pro wrestling staple is, you can't lose the title unless there's special stipulations put into the match. A title doesn't change hands on a count out or a disqualification. But
within, I would say within the first year of the NWO, I think that definitely worked to their advantage as opposed to the detriment of it, because he was doing those dastardly heel things. Doing whatever he could to stay on top and keep the belt and blah blah blah.
And then what added to that was the fact that the NWO started out as a small group of 3 big power guys. And it turned into this big freaking almost mafia gang.
Yeah. It got overinflated.
It did wind up getting kind of overinflated. But it's just
if you had kept it to maybe 5 guys.
Yeah.
Hogan, Hall, Nash, Six, Bischoff, maybe 1 or 2 more wrestlers in there. But again, like you said, it started getting too ballooned up and overinflated.
Yeah, it ballooned up big time.
And then you had the faction split with the Wolf Pack, and
yeah, that happened later.
which I was okay. I was kind of okay with that because in the initial,
I love the Wolf Pack.
the initial Wolf Pack, it was really just a small core group of guys. It was Nash, Sting, Luger, and Randy at first, but Randy didn't stick around much, and I think you had Conan in there as well.
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
So they didn't really let the red and black get too overinflated, but Hollywood NWO, it just kept just.
Yeah.
And then at some point you got like the NWO B team where you had guys like Stevie Ray and blah blah. It got overinflated, but I mean that first run of the NWO, that first year and a half,
yeah,
leading up to
the infamous Starrcade incident.
Yeah, that's where I'm headed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Leading up to Starrcade, that was peak NWO. I didn't really have too much bad to say at that point, aside from some of the matches were not that great. I liked Piper in the WWF, but by the time he got into WCW, he really couldn't hang much.
No, he really
That
couldn't.
series of matches he had with Hogan, they weren't that great. I can't really say who was at fault in a lot of that, because I've seen Hogan carry guys in matches and they would have a good match. Case in point right there.
Right.
So I don't really know who was to blame. I don't know if it was bad booking, if it was because Hogan just couldn't go anymore, which even though he was in his 40s, he was still in good physical condition. Piper, not so much.
Not so much.
Let's be honest, he
Yeah.
was not in good condition.
No, he wasn't.
So I don't really know in that series of matches who was
Yeah, because Piper had stayed out of the game for a while now.
who was at fault as to why those matches were so bad. But that build-up, the story, and I'll say this to my dying day when it comes to wrestling, story can a lot of times needs to take place over style.
Oh, definitely.
And story was on point.
Well, see, by this time, Bischoff had learned about good storytelling and was going to take a page from Vince McMahon's playbook. You know, a traditional wrestling story. Like, we're going to work this Sting.
Yeah.
Because Sting comes in, because you had the NWO beating up on everybody. You know, beating up on the, like, they remember when they gamed up on Piper?
Yeah.
They were holding him and all that kind, and they. But Sting comes in, falling from the rafters, baseball bat, scattering everybody, like the hero would do.
Yeah.
Or or at least the anti-hero when he goes against the bad guys and
The Batmans of the world,
yeah, the
basically.
Batmans of the world, and this is all leading to a big clash between Sting and Hogan at Starrcade '97 for the world title, and like I was, and I still remember the press conference that Sting and Hogan had. It was when that movie Soul from Devil's Island was there, and I remember they had the press conference between Hogan and Sting, and and it was just like leading into that match, and it was just like everything was big. Now we talk about why you don't give wrestlers creative control. Because Hogan, he basically derailed this whole thing by saying, "Oh, that don't work for me, brother," and a very infamous line. And it's just like, but Bischoff begged and basically wasn't going to let it go because he had to drop the belt at this point because of the story they were telling. So Hogan does relent, but something else is going on the other side with Bret the Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Vince McMahon. With the Montreal Screwjob, with Bret leaving the World Wrestling Federation to WCW, Eric Bischoff taking advantage of that and having Bret come in and try to, save the day.
Handled so bad.
That was handled so poorly. It messed up a good storyline with Sting winning. It messed up Bret's entrance. The hindsight, looking back into WCW, it's like, you just botched that so badly.
Honestly, this is what I would have done if this were me, if I were in control. I would have, in a legitimate fashion, had Hogan drop that belt to Sting.
Yes, definitely.
You have Bret Hart coming in. I would not have brought him in as soon as they did. I would have saved him
they should
until like the end of that Sting Hogan match. Have him come out afterwards and tell Hulk Hogan, "I'm here to kick your ass."
Yeah.
Because, like, at this point in time, it's well documented, like we were talking about earlier, that they were supposed to have that clash in WWF,
Yeah, there was.
but they never did.
Never did.
I would have brought it in as a story for Brett, like, I'm here to get what you cheated me out of.
Yeah, that would have actually worked out pretty good, actually.
Even if the belt's not on the line because Sting has it, I'm here to get that match you cheated me out of. That's how I would have booked that.
Yeah.
But no, they brought Brett in to referee, was it Scott Hall and Larry Zbyszko or some garbage?
I can't remember.
And then, you know, you had what was supposed to be the fast count. It wasn't a fast count.
Yeah,
so
but-
Sting loses.
Yeah, Sting
and,
had to get the belt back.
And, you know, Sting loses. He looks like a jackass. Brett comes in, restarts the match. Oh, Hogan taps out. It was a it was cluster. It was
Yeah.
just a cluster.
It was big time.
Because and the reasoning behind it is they didn't have a clear story going into the finish, because originally, yes, Hogan supposed to put Sting over. Sting wins the belt, but Hogan was like, I don't know if Sting can carry it. He hasn't been in the ring for all this time. You know, they said Sting was out of shape. I didn't see it. To me, Sting looked like he was in good shape.
Sting still appeared to be a pretty. Yeah, maybe he might have just a small bit of ring rust, but as far as him being in shape, he's still in pretty good shape.
Now, initially, when the whole thing started, he did have to take some time off because he had a knee injury. Sting has had several knee injuries, so he did have to take some time off for that. But they expanded it so that character and that story and all that drama could build up.
Yeah.
But Sting kept working out. He kept himself in shape. But that was the reasoning that Hogan gave, like, well, oh, he's not in good shape. And he, you know, like, no, dude, just
yeah, I know.
give the people what they want. People want to see Sting break you in half.
And if we're gonna be, and if, you know, would you agree or think that this might be the case here? We talked about Hogan's his stints a few, you know, little time, you know, about, you know, the WrestleMania 9, that being basically the final nail in the coffin for him in WWF. Would we say that maybe this incident at Starrcade 97 might have been not only Hogan's one of the last nails in his coffin for World Championship Wrestling, but maybe the very beginning downfall of WCW in a little bit?
I can't say that.
You can't say that?
I can't say that, and I'll give you a perfect example why.
Well, yeah, maybe I've jumped the gun a little bit because he did have a good match with Goldberg.
That's it.
Yeah.
That, in my eyes, that match
And that's actually
redeemed Hulk Hogan because he put Goldberg over.
I guess
because
I
even Hogan said, I can't do this. I cannot lose to him. He is too hot right now. He was the top guy in WCW, even though he wasn't the world champion at the time. He had the streak. He had the U.S. championship. Even Hogan was like, I can't. Hogan even realized at that point in time, he can't legitimately beat Goldberg.
Yeah.
So the Georgia Dome,
yeah.
Nitro,
I remember
he
watching
put
that.
Goldberg over clean.
I remember.
That was,
Yeah.
that was a chef's kiss match right there.
I might have jumped the gun just a little bit, but like if Goldberg and Hogan had never had that match, then it might have been the case.
Yeah.
But one thing was the case. That's it. The finger poke
That
of doom.
pisses me off to this day.
The finger poke of doom.
You know, I went back and watched a lot of our old videos, and I remember that being on my list of like worst world title wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to this day, it still holds up because to me, that is really when the wheels started falling off for Hulk Hogan in WCW,
yeah.
and
Probably.
it's really what started the downfall of WCW. To me, that
Probably
is a
a-
single instance.
Probably a true, because throughout most of '98, WCW is still cruising pretty good.
Yeah.
But when you think about the Warrior coming in late '98, and then you add the finger poke of doom at the end of '98 or very early '99, I think it's very late '98. I think it's damn near, it's almost '99. But those
Hogan, Goldberg dropped the belt to Nash at Starrcade, which takes place in December. The finger poke of doom incident, I think, happened
the next night on
January.
Nitro.
Well, no, it was maybe about a week or so after.
Oh, a week
that.
or so
So
later.
it was like somewhere very, very, very late '98 or early '99.
Yeah, it was very late '98 or very early '99. It was somewhere around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Hogan's not even dressed to wrestle.
No, he's in
in
street clothes.
he's in street clothes. He's got on like slacks, a tight black shirt, cowboy boots. It's like, and then you go, boop.
And
This is
then,
like,
and then you have the whole NWO story coming together again.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then
And of course, at some point in time, Goldberg was supposed to lose. I get that. But here's the thing. Goldberg came out and said in an interview one time, he wanted to lose sooner than that. He wanted to drop the belt to Diamond Dallas Page at Halloween Havoc '98.
They had a good match.
That was a hell of a match.
That was a good match between the two.
He said he would have been happy ending his streak and his title run right there because he knew he could still be a dominant force. He'd get it again.
And I love Diamond Dallas Page as a wrestler.
Yes.
He's a great wrestler. He can tell a good story, and he would have been great to have picked the belt up. Or you know what they could have done was they could have had Goldberg could still win that match, but then they could but DDP and Goldberg could have a return match.
Yeah.
Maybe at Starrcade or what is the pay-per-view event they have in November? Is that World War III?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean they could have had.
Yeah, because you had Halloween Havoc where you had the Goldberg Diamond Dallas Page match. You had World War III that Kevin Nash won. That's what gave him the title shot at Starrcade.
Oh, okay. So World War III, that's their Royal Rumble.
Basically, yeah. And Starrcade was their WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Though it was never as big as. But Goldberg, even though he said he learned everything about the business on the go, because the moment he stepped in that ring, they pushed him as a superstar.
Yeah.
So he had to learn on the fly. But he even had enough maturity and knowledge to know if he had dropped that belt to Diamond Dallas Page at Halloween Havoc in 1998, I can still be a dominant force, and I'll get it back at some point in time.
Yeah, you'll get it back at some point. And,
because he knew...
And then it does what needs to be done. It gives another guy, Diamond Dallas Page, it helps to give him the dues that he was owed.
Exactly, because he knew at that time that Diamond Dallas Page was over as hell. Because you were working at basically a babyface promo, and so he knew DDP was over with the fans.
Well, DDP had that big old event that he had earlier that year in the summer, where him and what's his name, Karl Malone,
yeah,
were against the Hogan and
Rodman.
Rodman, that's it. They had that big thing, and then DDP, they lost that one, but then DDP teamed with, I like it, but teamed with Jay Leno to go against Hogan and Bischoff.
Yeah.
I like it, but I kind of don't like it in a way. But
I'm not big on bringing celebrities into wrestling.
Right.
Because to me it kind of takes a piss on the hard work and the dedication that actual wrestlers put into learning.
But
stuff.
I think the match went like wasn't it mainly? It was basically kept DDP and Hogan and
they
Bischoff
carried the
and
bulk of the,
and then Hogan and then Bischoff and Leno they fought each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
because,
I think Leno got the,
because it's not going to be believable in any way capacity that Jay Leno could actually beat up Hulk Hogan.
No, and I think Leno got the pin on Bischoff or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that. But going back to Halloween Havoc 1998 and getting back on Hulk Hogan, did you watch the rematch?
Between
it was Halloween Havoc 1998.
I've seen some. Wasn't it the one where he was trying to light something? And
he was trying to light the flashback.
Yes, and it was terrible. Oh my goodness, that was.
I didn't watch it live.
I think I've seen the match or most of it anyway, and where Hogan's trying. Oh my god.
And he burns like part of his mustache off because the flash paper basically blew up in his own face. He burned and singed his mustache and his eyebrows and stuff. It was a horrid match. Like, as good as that one was, is as equally bad as Halloween Havoc was.
Wow, that's just terrible.
Because I've watched that match in its entirety a couple of times.
Yeah.
It was horrible. Warrior was gassed out. Hogan couldn't carry him. Hogan was trying. I'll give Hogan all the credit in the world. He was trying to get WrestleMania out of Jim Hellwig again and couldn't. He gassed out so quick. Hogan gassed out because he was doing the majority of the work. Is what that match was.
Exactly.
You know how you have these 5-star classics in wrestling? That was a 5-star shit show.
That's
That
a
was
5-star.
bad.
Yeah.
It was such a bad match.
And this is all leading to, basically, this is all leading to the downfall of WCW. And at this point, Hogan, the match, this infamous match that they had, plus the finger poke of doom, Hogan didn't really. I don't remember Hogan doing a lot in '99.
No,
And
he
then,
didn't.
and then what sealed the Hogan completely in WCW was the infamous. I think it was Bash at the Beach again.
Bash at the Beach 2000.
And then it was the, him.
4 years later, the pay-per-view that helped revitalize his career basically killed it, and basically WCW and all. But you can't put that solely on Hulk Hogan's head.
No, not solely.
That was Vince Russo. That was Eric Bischoff. Some of it was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, some of it was. It had to do with the fact that it looked like it was a shoot at first.
Yeah.
But it actually turns out that was part of the story. But then Russo decides to go ahead and strip, have another world championship match, which was a breach of contract, and that Hogan actually sued WCW or Russo, whatever. But Hogan filed a lawsuit, and that right there ended Hulk Hogan's stint in WCW once and for all.
Here's the thing. I do tend to lean more towards the Hogan Bischoff account, to where it was supposed to be Hogan walks out with the world title. Jarrett does the laydown, blah blah blah. Hogan walks out. They go have the match between Jarrett and Booker, new champion crown, blah blah blah, and they supposedly have this tournament or something. But Hulk Hogan comes back around Halloween Havoc like, I'm still champion. So I kind of can follow that logic. What I don't follow is the shoot promo that Vince Russo did.
That's true. Yeah, shoot. Yeah, it was like it was almost like a shoot work promo to a certain degree. And you could tell that Vince Russo, it sounds like he's letting out some real feelings in this one too. Like some of it could be a work, but he's really shooting on some shit.
One of the things that Vince Russo got so butthurt about is when he jumped ship from WWF to WCW, he was told he would have full creative control. Well, Vince McMahon was always there to filter his ideas.
Yes.
And when WCW started seeing a lot of the crap that Vince Russo was putting out, they had to put a buffer in place.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, Eric was already gone, but they formed a booking committee that I think Ric Flair was. I think it was Ric Flair, Kevin Sullivan, Terry Taylor. They had a booking committee like they did old school days.
Yeah.
And you had that buffer. Well, Vince Russo got pissed and left. And then somewhere along the way, they both come back in.
Yeah, both.
So you have Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff, with Eric acting as that buffer. And I honestly think that's where a lot of Vince Russo's venom came out, and that promo, because he wasn't getting his way. He wanted his stories on air, unedited, Vince Russo style. Which, if you ask me, Vince Russo is one of the dumbest, most bookers and writers in the business. It's like Jim Cornette said, he would have 100 ideas and maybe only 2 of them were good. And that was, he always had that Vince McMahon filter
that's
in the
WWF.
Thing.
You hit it right on the head. He always had some kind of filter to filter out all the shit that he wanted to do. And a perfect example of that is when the World Wrestling Federation, I still remember, and it had to be a Vince Russo idea, of Mae Young giving birth to a hand.
Yeah.
It's like, really? This is so freaking stupid. It's like, Vince Russo could come up with some good stuff, but most of his stuff is trash. That being a perfect example of it.
That really was.
It's like, and then so no wonder WCW, because at this point in time there's a buyout with Time Warner going on, and if WCW was the juggernaut it was from '96 to '98, well then our entire conversation might be completely different
Yeah.
right now, because WCW, for all we know, might still be around.
Yeah.
If WCW was the juggernaut, because at this point their value has gone down so poorly that Time Warner's probably thinking, that whole thing going on. It's just like, what's the use of keeping WCW? And then that's when Vince McMahon comes and pulls the rug out from underneath and buys WCW almost for pennies on the dollar in a roundabout.
He legitimately did buy it for pennies on the dollar.
I mean,
they said he bought WCW, the library, the contracts, anywhere from like $2 to $5 million. The whole damn company.
the whole damn shebang for just a.
He literally got it, as Cornette one time called it. He bought it on a fire sale. The final figure was somewhere between $2 to $5 million.
Yes, we got that.
And at one time, they were almost $1 billion company.
Yeah.
When they were at their height.
When they were at their height, and they were almost unstoppable.
Yeah.
And
but they kind of got to be like a bottle rocket. Ooh, ah.
And just straight back down. Yeah. And so
some of that I'll call a spade. Some of that was Hulk Hogan exercising that creative control.
Yeah, some of it.
But not all of it was. I mean, you can't put
No.
it squarely on the head of one person. A lot of bad decisions were made. A lot of bad booking was made.
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of bad booking.
Yeah.
And just a lot of bad circumstances that just added to the fall of WCW and the fall of Hogan again.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in time, because Hogan now, his WCW run is gone.
Yeah.
And this leads us into Hogan's third, I guess you could say, comeback into wrestling. Just a few years, or just under a few years later from that.
It was like WCW got bought out in 2001.
Yeah.
It was like 2002, I think, where.
Yeah, it was, but from Hogan's last major appearance in 2000 to his.
Yeah.
It was over a
Couple
year.
years.
Yeah, almost 2 years. And so, but yeah, with WCW being bought out, and the last Nitro, and that the whole invasion angle they did,
Uh-huh.
and then which had good elements to it, but then also had bad elements to it, and that leads us into the NWO invasion of the World Wrestling Federation in early 2002, leading into WrestleMania 18. With Hogan was originally supposed to. They wanted him and Stone Cold to do it.
Yeah.
Stone Cold didn't want to do it, as far as if I'm understanding it right. They couldn't get Stone
Yeah,
Cold.
for some reason Steve didn't want to do it. I think it was actually because not Hogan, but Austin was like, he knew that at the time The Rock was actually more over than he was.
Or was it?
So I mean, it really wasn't a selfish decision on his part. He was, I think, even Austin was like, I think a better program would be
The Rock
and Hulk Hogan,
which turned into being one of the most. I don't know what you would say. It turned into being one of the most famous, incidents in wrestling history, where it was almost like you could, even though the double turn between Bret and Austin, was historic. This was almost akin to that in some way, because Hogan and Rock having this icon versus icon match at WrestleMania 18, the crowd is booing the shit out of The Rock, who is the babyface and is legitimate the babyface coming into this match. Because of the assault that Hogan and them have been doing on The Rock, and the crowd is booing him, and they are cheering the hell out of Hogan, and it just leads to one of the most interesting moments in wrestling history.
Yeah. But The Rock went into that match knowing that was probably going to happen, because at this point in time, people, again, Hulk Hogan had been off TV for a couple of years. He hadn't been exposed, but he's coming. Basically, everyone viewed it as a homecoming.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan came home, and so initially, I mean, I know Hulk Hogan ended up winning the match, but they were really trying to push this thing about, or not Hulk Hogan, but The Rock ended up winning the match.
Yeah.
At some point in time,
even though The Rock won the match, Hogan actually
came out the hero.
He came out the hero. He came out being put over in a sense, even though he lost the match.
It wasn't. I won't say it was. The match wasn't great. It was a pretty good match. I mean, technically, it was sound, but it was more of the emotion of the crowd and the way that Hogan and The Rock were selling it. That's what made that such a great match.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And then afterwards, defeated Hulk Hogan. He's getting up. He's holding his ribs. I actually think he legitimately cracked a rib in that match.
He may have, yeah.
But he's getting up. He's holding his ribs, and even The Rock is like, "It's your show."
Yeah.
He gives it. I just won this big match, but you're the one they want to see.
Yeah.
And he basically gets out of that ring, and he gifted that whole arena to Hulk Hogan in that one moment.
Yeah.
That was such a great moment.
Didn't he even engage in a little bit of a pose down with Hogan too in that match too? Yeah, he did some of the pose down with him, and it's just like that right there shows you how much of an impact Hogan has in the wrestling world, and how the respect and the admiration that so many people like The Rock, who for all intents and purposes was almost as popular as a Hulk Hogan along with Steve in WWF at that time. But it just goes to show just how, even after he's away for a while, people still, almost everybody, wrestling fan or non, knows the name Hulk Hogan. Yeah. And whereas most people probably wouldn't know Ric Flair, Triple H, unless you're a big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Then you would, obviously. But most people, that's just how mainstream Hogan got. That's just how mainstream it is. So, yeah, with Hogan's return to the WWF, which was actually transitioning from the WWF to WWE because of a stupid World Wildlife Fund.
I never understood that. Like, Vince McMahon had enough money to bury them if he wanted to. Why didn't he? Why didn't he just say, "No, this is the WWF. You can go call yourself something else," and just buy it out?
I don't understand why they couldn't use. I mean, they've been borrowing they've been allowed to use this for years now, and their name is the World Wrestling Federation. So it's like, why is it such a big freaking deal? Whatever. But I guess the World Wildlife Fund thought that it's looking too much, because of the W's and the L, because the way he had the WWF logo for a long time, it could kind of get away with looking like it almost was one W. But anyway, and Hogan does win the title again.
Yeah.
But
wins it off Triple H, I believe.
His big pop and his big comeback in the World Wrestling Federation was kind of short-lived.
Yeah.
And he wasn't in the Federation again or in WWE for very long, because he had I've watched videos on YouTube of Hogan, because at this point I had fallen off of wrestling, so I was I was out of the wrestling thing for a little bit at this point. But he had this thing with Vince McMahon where he was like Mr. America.
Yeah.
And then and he took that lie detector test, and him and Vince, I think, had an arm wrestling match, and it was just it was funny and entertaining, but hokey at the same time. But I would say Hogan's stint with the World Wrestling Federation, and probably his stint in pro wrestling, is getting close to coming to an end for the most part, after the infamous SummerSlam match with Shawn Michaels. Which is
and again you see that politicking Hulk Hogan come into play again.
Well, you had two guys.
Yeah.
Well, you're right about the politicking on Hogan's part for sure, but Shawn's been notorious for his politicking too.
But I think you have to look at it at this point in time. Shawn has made amends with everybody.
Yeah, because at this point Shawn is reformed.
Yeah.
Shawn is a reformed man,
and Shawn, he had no problem losing if it furthered a storyline.
What Shawn was thinking, what Shawn was wanting to do, is he was wanting to do like a 3-match run.
Yeah, which he had no problem losing the overall.
Yeah,
he said he'll win one, Hogan will win one. You have the rubber match, Hogan go over, blah blah.
Right.
He wanted that 3-match program, to which he had no problem losing the overall program.
And then, but Hogan, with his infamous politicking, decided he wanted to win them all.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that didn't go over good with Shawn. And Shawn and Hogan have one of the most it's one of those infamous matches.
It's almost comical to watch
because Shawn,
and I love Shawn to death. He is without a doubt one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time.
Oh, definitely.
But Shawn purposefully sabotaged that match.
He sabotaged that match.
And even Shawn has said, "Yeah, I went out there to make it look foolish."
Yeah,
because the way he oversold.
He oversold the spots in the match, just like big time oversold it, and it was just, and you know, whether Hogan got it at that moment or would get it later. I don't know if Hogan realized what was going on at the moment it was happening.
I don't know.
Because it's like, yeah, Shawn oversold it. He sabotaged the match because Hogan was playing politics with how with what Shawn was wanting to do, and it's just like, well, that basically ends Hulk Hogan's last major run in wrestling. Because after this, he kind of goes. I think he does. He becomes a host. Well, they do Hogan Knows Best.
Yeah.
He does. He's also like a one of the hosts of the Return American Gladiators. It's very, very short-lived stint to come back. He goes through a bad period where he almost commits suicide.
Yeah.
And that's because of the Linda divorce, his family being just with his son having the accident he had, just everything. And
to this day, I do not understand how Linda was able to clean his ass out the way she did.
She cleaned him out, huh?
She took a lot.
Damn.
Like, she took over half the estate.
Well, she probably done as much damage as she could, probably out of spite.
She did.
I mean,
even Brooke and Nick were like, they wouldn't speak to her for the longest time because of what they did to Hulk, or what she did to Hulk.
You know, I hate it when that kind of shit happens because it's like, whatever kind of differences a husband and wife have, for God's sakes, don't destroy your whole entire family.
And the thing about it is the way I looked at it is, okay, yeah, she should get something. You can't just put her out in the cold.
No,
but it was Hulk Hogan who broke his body and ran those roads and did everything he could to put her in that lifestyle.
Yes.
And yeah, granted, I'm not saying Hulk Hogan is a saint by any means. He cheated on her. But she cheated on him. She got caught.
Yeah.
She files for divorce and then cleans his ass out.
Damn.
Like that, the house that they were, going back to Hogan Knows Best, the house that they were living in, she got it. She got that house. She got a lot of his memorabilia from his wrestling days. She got a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I bet
she cleaned him out.
And that's sad because him and Linda had been together for literally at least a few decades.
They've been together like at least 20 years.
You know, and so, but this brings up another topic of. I
don't know if you know, but he did do a stint in TNA Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, he was. There was a stint going on there, but around this time, the Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig, has made a big online presence of himself, and I watched quite a bit of it. And
he made a big ass of himself.
He made a big ass of himself, yeah. But it makes you wonder, though, as much of an ass as Jim Hellwig really was and could be, was he telling some truth about Hogan? If we just stopped and was objective about it,
I think you have to take it
because
with a grain of salt.
Yeah, because he did go back when he came back for that short stint before he passed and made amends himself. Yeah. He made amends with Hogan too. So he accused Hogan. I distinctly remember a Warrior saying this about Hulk Hogan, and it could be kind of shocking when you first learned about it, but he was like, he quotes Hogan as saying, "Oh, a day without pot's like a day without sunshine, brother." And it was like, okay, so Hulk Hogan.
I wouldn't be that surprised because I mean, especially in the '80s, think about how rampant they used as many drugs and alcohol in professional wrestling as rock stars did, especially during the '80s.
Oh yeah, well, two things.
Because again, it really was just another rock star style life. You're running the roads. You're in a different town every night.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, and two drugs, well maybe three, but two for sure that were running rampant during that early 80s and maybe the very early 90s was good old blow, cocaine,
Yep.
and steroids.
Oh yeah. And painkillers.
Painkillers too, like Tylenol 3.
Tylenol 3, Oxycontin when they came out, codeine. Yeah.
And I'm sure lots and lots of marijuana too,
Yeah.
because we have to think it's easy for anybody. As much as I'm opposed to casual marijuana use, and medical reasons is one thing, but casual use I'm not on board
No.
with. But if we're thinking about the wrestlers, like you pointed out, with all the bumps and this is not really fake, even though it's put on and it's a work. Their bodies are being broken night in,
Mhm.
day out, and they have to turn to substance abuse, Tylenol, steroids, painkillers, marijuana, things that ease the pain
Yeah.
of the amount of bumps and pain that they're in. Because it's not like football where it's basically one game a week, even though they do practice. But it's like having a game every day. Or
And you don't get an off season.
And you don't even give an off season, right? You'll work day in, day out doing these house shows. So yeah, but and part of the Warrior doing that too. It was probably jealousy.
Yeah.
Probably the Warrior, tearing Hogan down as much as he was, telling some truths, but at the same time trying to belittle Hogan as much as he could because he was jealous of probably how big Hogan was.
Mhm.
Which is like, well, Warrior, you had, as much as I love the Warrior character, Jim Hellwig,
Horrible person.
a very horrible person, actually. And it
Up
just,
until right shortly before he died, horrible person.
yeah, and it's just like, dude, if you had half the respect for the business that Hogan and others had, just half, you would have been remembered in a much better light. And you may have almost eclipsed Hogan.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's a big maybe. Because if you watch their entrances to WrestleMania 6, Warrior gets a pretty good pop. But Hogan actually gets a bigger one.
Edge
And
brought
going
this.
in-
Go ahead.
No, that's fine. You go ahead.
Edge brought this up in an interview one time because he said he was a Hulk Hogan guy. And by the way, in his second stint where him and Edge won the tag team championships, Edge said that was like a childhood dream coming true. But Hogan, he was talking about that match in particular because I think he said he was there that night.
Yeah. Yeah,
He-
Edge and Christian both were, actually.
He watched as Hulk Hogan left the ring. Your new champion's in the ring, celebrating, but every eye is on this guy.
Yes.
Leaving the arena.
Yeah, that's why, yeah.
And Edge said right then and there he said he knew Warrior would be a star, but he would never be as big a star as him.
No.
And that tells you some things.
Yeah, it does tell you a lot of things. It tells you how, for one thing, just how big Hogan, how big it was, how cemented Hogan was, and it just, no matter how much Vince wanted to try to get another Hulk Hogan, you were there. The
No.
Warrior was the absolute closest he was ever going
Yeah.
to get to another Hulk Hogan, and you had the wrong guy playing the Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig,
Yeah.
and it just was not going to happen.
I honestly think, this is my opinion, because Sting and Jim Hellwig, they were tag team partners for a while in like the UWF and stuff like that. If he could have acquired Steve Borden with Steve's work ethic and made him the Ultimate Warrior, you might have come close. I'm
Might.
not going to say you're going to keep up with Hulk Hogan, but you might have come close if he could have gotten Steve Borden as the Warrior as opposed to Jim Hellwig.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that, because I would say if Hogan's a 10, let's just make this very simple. If Hogan's a 10 as far as icon status, doing what you're saying with Jim Borden being Sting, being made the Ultimate Warrior, I think he may be a 9
Yeah.
at the most. He would come awfully
It came
close.
very close.
He'd come awfully close.
But you're not. And this is something I've wanted to put out there a long, long time. Every wrestler who has made a success in this business from the time Hulk Hogan became Hulk Hogan as we know him, every wrestler from that point on who had, no matter what promotion you're in, that has made themselves a success in this business, owe that to him.
Yeah.
In some shape, form, or fashion, you owe your success, even if it's just a modicum of it, to Hulk Hogan. Because if there was no Hulk Hogan, there was no Hulkamania. If that never happened, we would not have professional wrestling as it is today.
No.
Now, I'm not saying it's all good, but
most of it is, I would say.
most of it is, yes. But that ability to come in and make yourself a star, everybody, and as much as I love The Undertaker, even The Undertaker owes it to Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah,
because
definitely.
you would not have this business as big a drawing power as it is.
Oh, yeah.
Without Hulk Hogan.
Because Hulk Hogan did something that very few, if hardly any wrestlers at the time did, and that was not only was he a popular wrestler, he started to break into Hollywood, and he broke the mold. But, and it started with Rocky III.
Yeah.
And he started playing, later on, he would do, like No Holds Barred, Suburban Commando later on. He would do these movies. And so he's getting recognized
Now, were they great movies?
No, not great movies, but they were highly entertaining.
They were entertaining, yeah.
Highly entertaining.
A lot of people hate on Mr. Nanny. I love it. I think it's a fun, sort of Home Alone-esque kids movie.
Yeah, it is. It is. And but yeah, like these movies, it's just Hogan broke the mold and started becoming such a well-renowned household name. So,
and then you have that crossover that happened with MTV and Cyndi Lauper, where you get the rock and wrestling connection.
the rock and wrestling connection, going back to the WrestleMania 1 thing.
So, but you could not have put that pressure on anyone else's shoulders and have it be a success. No one else could have done it.
Nope.
You found, or Vince McMahon found, the man he needed to do it. The closest, in my personal opinion, that they've come since then is John Cena. Because
yes, I would say Cena, and right now, currently, I would almost say Cody Rhodes.
Yes, absolutely.
At the present moment, you always have at certain times the guy that is the sort of like the flag character of the whole company. John Cena was that. Daniel Bryan almost was there for a very short period of time, unfortunately, before he got injured.
Daniel took too many chances.
Yeah.
Now, I'm all for like high flying and stuff like that, but Daniel was kind of a detriment to himself.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything negative to say about Daniel Bryan, but he took way too many chances.
And then, of course, we get the Cody Rhodes right now, who is undisputedly the man in wrestling right now. So which I think he deserves. Especially coming off of being the son of Dusty Rhodes and all that. So, well, we've covered quite a bit of Hogan.
Yeah.
They covered quite a bit.
I think we jumped around a little bit, but I think we pretty much gave a pretty good. I know we criticized him a lot, but I'll give Hogan all the praise in the world.
Now,
for what he did for the business.
Our criticism of Hogan is more or less a criticism of the man Terry Bollea more than it is Hogan, the character, so to speak. But
and it is definitely two separate people.
Yeah. But
like I said, by no means is Hulk Hogan, or no means Terry Bollea a perfect person, but Hulk Hogan and the contributions he made to the business and how he helped keep it afloat, you can't ignore that.
Right.
I think two things are really just one thing that I think still kind of bothers me is that him. And again, I know I mentioned him a lot. Him and The Undertaker never really reconciled their differences.
No,
before Hogan died.
Yeah, before Hogan died.
Because and I'm not saying The Undertaker is all, trying to be bitter or something like that. He just tells stories about how things happened.
Right.
He told the story about the pile driver, and how Hogan was burying him to Vince. And even Ric Flair came to The Undertaker's defense at that point in time, and he was telling Vince, like, he never touched him. His head never touched. And then we go back to the SummerSlam thing with him and Shawn. That pissed Taker off because at that point in time, Shawn and Taker had reconciled their differences, and again, Undertaker, he was a locker room leader, but he was never that political guy.
Yeah.
If he was, he would have never lost WrestleMania.
Right.
He would have never lost at WrestleMania.
Right. That's very true.
And even that match where he did lose to Brock Lesnar, even Brock Lesnar was like, I want to do it.
Right.
But they were trying to build him up as, I mean, he'd already had that one stint. This is the second run, but they were trying to build him up towards, a championship goal. And if he had lost to WrestleMania, what's the point of putting him in a title hunt?
Right.
But that's what they were going for. So Vince was like, yeah, I kind of need you to put Brock over. But even Brock Lesnar was like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Even Brock was not happy about it.
Right.
Roman, when he was the second guy to defeat Undertaker at WrestleMania, he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But that's just the kind of person that Mark Calloway is. He was that respected. He was willing to put people over, but a lot of times, the people who he was putting over, they were like, I don't want to.
Right. Before we close here, going back, if I'm to play devil's advocate for just so to speak, and just give Hogan Terry Bollea, I think it's still BS, but I'm just going to let's just say, the infamous, you got me, brother, Tombstone pile driver. We know his head didn't touch the chair, but could there have been a way that maybe the way Taker was holding him, not that he would intentionally do.
That's kind of what Hogan was saying.
Maybe the way
he was holding him too tight, and he jarred him. But Undertaker was saying, like, I wanted to make sure I had a good grip on him, that way I didn't drop him.
Right. And, if I'm just playing devil's advocate just a little bit to give Hogan a slight benefit of the doubt here, because we obviously know, you said Ric Flair said never said. So you got Taker saying it, because they went back and watched the tape. Ric Flair confirming it, and it's just like, so if something really did happen to Hogan, and Hogan wasn't just ribbing him or just trying to cause some unnecessary drama, it's like, well, maybe Taker held on to it, or maybe Hogan's neck and head was maybe bent the way it was held up against his legs. I don't know. That's just kind of throwing it out there.
I think that's what it is. He said that the Undertaker had too snug of a grip on him.
Yeah.
You got a 300+ pound man in a grip, you're going to want to hold on to him.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, when his knees impact, what happens if he loses grip?
Exactly.
You're going to plant on your head.
Yeah, you're going to plant on your head. Matter of fact, as big as Taker and Hogan were, as much as they weighed, you would have had what happened with Owen and Austin times 2 or 3 at least.
Yeah. Oh, it would have snapped Hogan's neck.
It would have done an incredible amount of damage. Yeah, for sure. But that's just me throwing that out there, but Hogan has kind of been notorious for exaggerating things, blowing things up, and stuff of that nature.
I think as you can respect what he did for the business.
Oh, definitely.
But still be critical of what he did in his personal
Right.
life.
And I'm glad up until these last few years, Hogan had he gave his life to Christ and got saved for sure. And I'm glad that he did that because we know that he's in good hands.
Yeah. I want to talk about one incident.
What's that?
I think it was. Did you watch the Netflix WWE Raw premiere?
Oh, I did not, but I did see where they booed the shit out of him.
I was monumentally pissed off.
That was
at that segment because
they just
you took a shit on one of the biggest legends in the business.
Yeah, they didn't have to do it.
And I thought that was monumental. You can boo him, in the moment of he's a heel or whatever, but you booed this man. And you shit on the legend of, or you shit on his career, who he is, I thought that was extremely disrespectful of the Los Angeles crowd.
It was very
when they did that.
Well, and there's probably two reasons why they did it. One reason was probably more obvious than another, and that was because of Hogan's support for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And which, of course, I'm all for. You know, I'm a Trump supporter, so you can do whatever you want with that. I don't care. But and this was in Los Angeles, California, the bluest state in the whole union.
Yeah.
And they probably some people still holding the racist thing over his head, and it's just like we have all, whether to ourselves or maybe to our closest family or friends, have all said something or thought something that's very nasty or mean, whether of a person or race.
Mm-hmm.
Makes no difference. And Hogan was caught on a hot mic, and it's just like, for the love of God, people, just let it go.
Yeah.
Okay, the man was taken out of the Hall of Fame. Glad he was put back in, but he was actually stripped of his Hall of Fame status for a little bit because of the outrage of that. So I think the man was punished enough. So just let it, all you out there that hate Hulk Hogan because you think he's a racist, let it go.
Let it go and let the man be
Because the man's
the legend that he
exactly,
was.
exactly. Whether Hogan was a real racist or not, I don't know. I don't think he probably was. Because the man, you know, always saying, hey, brother, 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 and it's just like, come on, people. The man done 2 big stints with 2 black men. Mr. T for WrestleMania 1, and Dennis Rodman with the feud he had with DDP and Karl Malone. Give it up,
Even
people.
Booker T, he said Hogan was nothing but professional and cordial to him.
Right.
And Booker T, he's another one of those wrestlers that I respect. I have just endless respect for.
Yeah, Booker T's a great,
He's a great person in and out of the ring, great performer in the ring, and even he has said he never had a crossword, any unprofessional instances with Hulk Hogan, and Hogan was never anything but cordial to him.
Right.
Honestly, I think it was a heat of the moment thing, and I'm not making excuses for him. It was dumb what he said.
It was dumb what he said, but it was also at a point in time when I think he was still at a low point in his life, because he's still coming off of the bad stuff with Hogan Knows Best. He's, I think the Gawker thing was going on at that time, the lawsuit and all that. It's just, Hogan was not in a good mental state at the time. So, I mean, for goodness sakes, give the man a little bit of a break. I mean, my God, you give all these, a lot of these people, they give all these other people such breaks and stuff. It's just like, for goodness sakes alive. You say a certain word or you say a certain thing, and the way a lot of these people are, they just hold it over their head and never let it go. Mm-hmm. But it's,
I am honestly of the mindset, people have wronged me in my life. Live and let live.
Exactly.
You either make amends or you cut them out of your life.
Yeah, and it's just because the more you hold on to a grudge or the more you hold on to hard feelings, it really winds up hurting yourself more than it does, you know. So it's just like, people, just
get rid of it.
Just let it go, okay? Let it go.
But I hope you guys have enjoyed this career retrospective for Hulk Hogan. Stay tuned. We've got some more videos coming up. Make sure you subscribe and like the video. If you guys have any ideas of future wrestling videos you want us to cover,
in the comments below.
And we'll see you later. Let me see if this is still. Which one you want to do next? What time is it anyway?
It's 3:51.
Oh, okay. I got time. I got nothing else I'm doing today, so.
Let's see. Well, we try to. We can at least try to get one more video in. Okay.
I'm probably gonna break this into like 3 different videos.
Yeah. Let me use the bathroom real fast. I'll be right back. Take a look around.
Yeah, this is without a doubt the coolest room ever. This
yeah,
is,
I've got a lot of
Now, is this from the
Movie,
movie from
yes.
2017?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I need to get the series one.
Yeah.
But I loved the 2017 movie.
I thought it was good. I don't know why it got as much hate as it did.
I don't know why I did either. It was I like the idea that Rita was actually the original Green Ranger,
Yeah.
and that Zordon was the original Red Ranger. I
Yeah.
thought that was actually a good lore expanding thing
Yeah.
to do. But if it made more money,
Yeah.
maybe they would have made a sequel. It just didn't make the money.
Because they left it on that cliffhanger with Tommy coming in.
That and the damn Beauty and the Beast movie came out at that time. If the Beauty and the Beast movie hadn't even come out,
You know, I haven't seen that movie.
me neither. I don't really.
I
care.
honestly haven't watched any of the live-action Disney remakes. Now, I know you want to do a video about Vince McMahon, but I really wanted to cover the racism.
Yeah,
of
that's what I was
wrestling.
thinking. We kind of ran over a nice bit on the Hogan video
Yeah.
there. We kind of got off on some tangents. I thought maybe we might cover the Vince McMahon one another time. So
Yeah.
that'd probably be the way with Hogan, Vince is probably going to be about another lengthy one too.
This Sunday, I plan on shooting 7 videos at Ricky's.
Okay.
So,
Oh,
if you're free, like the Sunday following, I can come back and we can shoot some more. If you're good, or
Yeah, you can come back over here, or we can do a little bit of swap-a-roo. I could come over there, maybe to your house, or would you rather maybe come back over here again?
I'd rather come because right now my house is not in any condition to
I
record.
got you.
So,
Okay. Yeah. How about
the room where I was filming, I've piled so much stuff in there because I'm trying to get a lot of shit moved out and get everything cleaned back up.
Yeah, we'll do the racism in wrestling. We'll do that video coming up, and then maybe
Because like what I'm planning on doing, I'm planning on breaking the Hogan video down into 3 parts.
oh yeah, it's
so
going
that'll give us 4 videos, but especially with me getting this job over at
yeah.
I'll be off on Sundays.
Okay.
So I mean, like we can still film in bulk and
I usually work real early on Sundays. I
Yeah.
work like 6 to 3, so probably around 3:30ish or something might be, or just after 3.
Yeah, okay.
On Sundays, you probably come over and then we can shoot the Vince McMahon video.
Okay, cool.
Probably a week from this Sunday or
yeah, sounds
sometime.
good to me. I really want, like I said, I want to do a lot of the bulk videos that I plan on doing this weekend because I want to try and get those done to where it just gets us through the new year.
I got you.
So,
All right.
but-
Well, I'll let you go ahead since you're. I'll let you go
Okay.
ahead and bring this one in.
Welcome back to the Squared Circle, and if you've been following this channel for any amount of time, we just did a series giving a little bit of a retrospect on the career of Hulk Hogan, and upon discussion, we decided to cover another topic because it kind of does tie in. We decided to discuss the racism in wrestling story.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there that says, that have said that professional wrestling can be a very racist environment. And there has been a story that's come out recently with Devon Dudley.
Yes, we're definitely going to cover
Where
that.
he kind of implicated Jim Ross had
And
made
that-
some racist comments to him.
Very
He
much-
never outright said Jim Ross.
Oh, but he definitely
meant Jim.
Oh, he definitely implied it. It was basically a confirmation implication with Maven too.
Yeah.
Because they were on Maven. He can so it's like, yeah.
Which I find very strange because I've never
Very
heard
much
anybody say anything like that about Jim Ross.
Yes, it's such a surprise. Which it's like either they have kept the lid on this so tight that nobody knew about it,
Yeah.
or like us now, the fans and stuff, or it was something that was extraordinarily taken out of context. That's the
But-
only thing I could say about that. Do you want to go ahead and just cover it
Yeah.
now?
Well, I mean, there's actually a flip side I wanted to discuss too because in the modern era, there were a lot of people saying that guys like Bobby Lashley and MVP and Shelton Benjamin, they weren't given the push that they were supposed to, or they should have gotten with the Hurt Business or whatever the hell it was, because they were black, and then they go over to AEW and blah blah blah. Here's my thing, and a lot of people have said Bobby Lashley deserved better. No, he didn't.
Really? Well, you go ahead. I'm not really sure.
No.
I know I know he had a great look.
Yeah.
He had but did he have the Ahmed Johnson syndrome?
He had no charisma.
Oh.
He was a good worker. Again, great look, no charisma,
Oh, okay.
couldn't, and was terrible on the mic.
I got you. Well, see, the reason I said Ahmed Johnson syndrome is because Ahmed Johnson was a terrible worker. He was very dangerous.
Well, no. Bobby, I'll give Bobby credit.
He
He's
was a good worker. He just
had no charisma. He did not have that it factor.
So he had basically 2/3 of what you had to have. He had the work ethic and being able to do in-ring work, and he had the look, but he had no mic skills.
Right.
So,
And people always wanted to push him as like the next sort of Brock Lesnar. But even though Brock was never the strongest on the mic, either A, he always had a mouthpiece with him like Paul Heyman,
right.
or B, he didn't need it.
Well, you gotta have, if you can't do mic work and you're gonna get over, you have to have a sort of a quiet, your silence has to speak.
And Brock was perfect
That's
at that.
what I'm saying. Yeah, Brock could do that.
He didn't have to say, I'm going to rip you apart. He just went out there and ripped you apart.
Exactly.
He didn't have to be able to say it. He just went and did it. So Brock had that silent, imposing, charismatic it quality.
It quality, yeah.
Bobby Lashley never had it to me.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people who criticized, especially Triple H and Vince McMahon of the WWE for not pushing Bobby, he got world title shots. He was a world champion. They did push him. He just, to me, didn't have that value.
Right.
So, what are you going to do?
Exactly. What are you going to do?
He can't carry the company if he doesn't resonate with the fans.
Right. If it doesn't resonate with fans, just like anything, you know, you're not going to go very far, because this is also a money-making business too. This is not just
it's not a friggin' hobby.
It's not a hobby. It's not for free, you know. So if you can't sell tickets, if you can't sell shirts and DVDs, and if you can't put butts in the seats, I'm sorry.
Now, is professional wrestling a predominantly white business? Yes. I'm not going to die on that hill and say it's not. It is. It is a predominantly white business, but you have had minorities make impacts in it. The early, or not, you go back to the mid 90s or the late 90s in WCW with that cruiserweight division.
Yeah,
some of the best cruiserweights were Mexican.
Yeah, Mexicans.
You had Rey Mysterio. You had Eddie Guerrero. You had like Psychosis and Juventud Guerrera. These guys made that division. Now, were they going to be the top guys winning the world championships in WCW? No, because they were small. They were smaller guys, so they weren't going to be able to break through that. But
you know, one guy did break the mold when he came to WWE, and that was Rey Mysterio Jr.
Well, so I mean Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, too. Eddie Guerrero, right? They broke the mold. So it's like you can't sit there and say that because you're of a different race, whether it be black or Hispanic or Oriental, you can't say that you can't get there and be, or at least win the world championship, because Eddie Guerrero did it.
Yeah.
For goodness sakes, Rey Mysterio Jr. won the championship, being such a little guy, winning the heavyweight championship of the world. So I mean,
and I think he may have been like, he wasn't even 200 pounds. He was like maybe 175
at most.
At most, but he's your world heavyweight champion. So, again, I'm not going to die on the hill and say that there hasn't been racism in wrestling. Yes, there is.
But has there been racism in the United States and the world abroad? Yes, obviously. In every country, there's racism.
And so there is always a certain. Yeah, I'm not going to die on that hill, but is it inherently just racist? No, I don't think so.
No, I don't.
Because you have had those minorities, like you said, that have been pushed.
But you know, it makes you think back, and this goes back decades ago, back in the, you know, the olden days, I guess we'll say, you know, because I've heard, you know, that it was a Dark Side of the Ring episode where they talked about the Fabulous Moolah and some kind of bad thing that happened with there was a black woman wrestler. And it was just things just
was it Sweet Georgia Brown or something like that?
That sounds like that might be familiar, especially that name.
Yeah, I think that's who you're talking about.
And it's like
where she basically pimped her out to guys.
Yeah.
And now that totally fucking reprehensible.
Yeah.
Sorry for my language, but
no, it's very much reprehensible. And you know, when we talk about even Vince Sr., I don't know, but now Vince McMahon Jr., on the other hand, if we're going to be honest, I don't know. It does seem like Vince Jr., there might be maybe a little bit of racism because you think about it for example. You look at like Coco Beware, who was, he wasn't as big as Hogan in size and the Warrior size, but he was a pretty good presence there for a little while. He had a good character. Because I could easily see someone like Coco Beware, not necessarily being the heavyweight champion of the world, the world, but I
Intercontinental.
I could definitely see him winning the Intercontinental Championship or being paired with somebody that might win the tag titles.
I don't know if they won, but he was in a tag team with Owen Hart at one point in time.
So
I don't remember if they won tag team titles or not.
I could definitely see that, but then it makes you wonder. Is it just because Vince just doesn't see? Because you also got to think too, and it just goes to what you're talking about with Bobby Lashley, Then I don't think it really. I think Coco Beware had,
Coco Beware, he was miles more charismatic than Bobby Lashley.
So I don't know if it was just something Vince just didn't see in the character anymore, or
because I'll be honest, I liked Coco Beware.
Yeah, Coco Beware was pretty
cool. He was colorful. He was flashy. He was charismatic.
Yeah, he was very.
He could get him and his bird Frankie. They got the crowd going.
Yeah, I mean.
So I liked Coco Beware, and I think he could have been used a bit better. Maybe not world champion status.
No, not world
champion. Definitely intercontinental tag team. But I don't think he got those accolades.
Yeah, he didn't get those accolades, obviously, and it does make some people wonder if maybe Vince McMahon Jr. or the Vince McMahon currently, if he harbored any kind of ill will towards African Americans or even, well, I don't know, because obviously it doesn't seem like he harbors anything that we know of against Hispanic. Like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio Jr. won titles, so it's like, but if you think about it, outside of Booker T, Bobby Lashley won too, but he didn't last very long. But it's like there hasn't been very many black world champions in WWF.
You had Booker T, Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
Ahmed Johnson. He's half and half, but The Rock.
Yeah, he's half and half.
He's half Samoan, half black. So you had those three.
The Rock is probably the biggest one.
The Rock's definitely the biggest one.
And
but yeah, I mean, all in all, there hasn't been a lot of
African American black
champions in any federation that I can account for.
But
you had Ron Simmons in WCW.
Yes.
Again, you had Booker T in WCW.
In WCW too, yes.
But
it does make maybe it's just because. And this just goes to a population thing. There's still more white people in the U.S. than there are black people. Yeah. So, I mean, and there's also going to be, if that being the case, there's going to be more white wrestlers than black wrestlers. So, I mean, it's just kind of like the DEI push that they've had, in the country the last years. And it's just like, when you try to push on purpose, it's like it can be to the detriment of whatever field it's in. And it's just like, and that could be the same thing with pro wrestling. It may appear like there could be racism, there's not a lot of minorities being pushed. Well, there's still more white wrestlers,
And the reason why I can kind of look at it from both sides of it is A, again, your point, there's not a lot of black wrestlers.
Right.
But B, there's also been a lot of white wrestlers who said, hey, I'm not getting the push that I deserve.
That's true,
Everyone's not going to get that push.
Yeah,
you have to be able to resonate with the crowd. And if you don't really draw that in, it is a business.
It is a business.
First and foremost, it is a business. You have to make them money.
And even if you're a nice person and you want to be a nice person, if you're going to be a pro wrestler, at some point, if you want to get over or over enough to keep your career going,
you got to cut some throats.
Yeah, to say the least.
It's sad to say,
but at the very least, you've got to stand up for yourself to the point of cutting some throats.
Yeah.
And so you've got to say, hey, I don't want to do this. I hate this. Like the Cowboy Bret Hart thing. They're doing, it's just like Bret did not like that.
That was so stupid.
It was so stupid. So
I get the reasoning why, because of the Calgary Stampede and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Bret Hart as a cowboy was a stupid
It was
concept.
a very, very stupid thing. But Bret, even though he did it for a very, very, very short stint, stood up for himself and said, No. So he's like, put me with Jim Neidhart, and Jimmy Hart caused the Hart Foundation. So they finally bent to it. So that's one example. And it's just like...
Now, here's another aspect that it borders on racist, but I don't think it's entirely racist because if you look at the flip side of it, which I'll discuss that too, the foreign heel trope in wrestling.
Yes, the foreign heel trope.
And the reason why I say it walks a fine line is because if you flip it and you go to places like NJPW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, when they have what they call the Gaijin over there, which is basically American white wrestlers, they're portrayed as the foreign heel.
Yes.
As opposed to over here where like maybe the Japanese wrestlers are the foreign heel.
Yes, yes.
So there's racist storytelling without a doubt. Especially when you get into that type of stuff.
And even though this is not so much a racist thing, but definitely a nationalistic thing too.
Yeah, because nationalism is a big thing.
Nationalism is also...
that might have been better. It might have been better to call that the foreign heel trope more nationalism as opposed to racism.
Because it can be a little racist, no doubt, but it definitely is nationalistic because of all the Russian stuff they did in the 80s with Nikolai Volkov and of course you got the Iron Sheik, which that's both nationalist and racist.
Yeah.
Because that's the Muslim Middle East thing, So it's
and even as far as WrestleMania, what was it 7? Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter, the Iraqi sympathizer.
I love it. Love it. It's cheap heat, but I don't care.
It is definitely cheap. That is the pinnacle, chef's kiss of cheap heat right there.
But it was actually a pretty good story because you had Sergeant Slaughter, the turncoat, who was, for all intents and purposes, just as patriotic as Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan, yeah.
And he becomes the Iraqi sympathizer with General Adnan and the Iron Sheik.
Yeah.
Was he called the Sheik at that time?
I don't think he was called the Iron Sheik.
He was called something else. Colonel Mustafa.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, yes. it was.
I have always wondered exactly how the hell did they talk Sergeant Slaughter into doing that?
No joke. The only thing I could say is that maybe it was just to flip the script.
Maybe.
And the fact that maybe it might have been that he gets to work with Hogan.
Yeah.
And
be a world champion.
And be world champion. Money.
Yeah, money always talks.
Becoming world champion for a few months and money. So, yeah, that's probably
another example that I find. It's not racism, but more nationalism. Is in 3 of the biggest American promotions, you have always had at some point in time, the Canadian foreign heel. In the WWE, during Bret Hart's later run, you had the Hart Foundation.
Oh, definitely.
You had Bret, Owen,
Bulldog,
who was from Great Britain, but you had Bret and Owen who was from Canada.
Yeah, Jim Neidhart.
Jim had Neidhart. I think he was American also.
Yeah, he was American.
But it was really Canada focused.
It was very Canada focused because Bret and Owen were Canadian, but Jim Neidhart, Bulldog, and Brian Pillman, all while American, well, Davey being English, but Neidhart and Pillman being American, they all combined together and then they were allied with that group, So it was a big Canada focused, and that takes us to 1997 where, you have Bret Hart. And it's such a dichotomy because even though I love Bret, that year I hated his ass. Oh my God.
Yeah, again, like,
oh my God,
when Hulk Hogan and the NWO, I despised Bret Hart at that
point. Oh my
point.
God, man. And Bret, like Jim Ross has said, Bret was such a classy heel with the way he did things. And because they were hated heels here in America. But as soon as they crossed the border into Canada, they were cheered like freaking heroes. And it was such a surreal time to be a wrestling fan, and that kind of plays into not so much racism, but the nationalism,
And then again, you had Team Canada in the latter days of WCW that was headed up by Lance Storm. You had primetime Elix Skipper, who was also Canadian. But then again, you have Americans who join it. Mike Awesome was a member of them. And I don't know what they were thinking putting him in here, but Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh, wow.
He was a member of Team Canada.
And he's another one of those that were super patriotic Americans, too. It's very interesting stuff that's happened in pro wrestling. So, getting back to Jim Ross, which is the most recent big thing, the only thing I can think of outside of, it's just like to hear that Jim Ross is potentially potentially a racist. is like the only thing I can say is that maybe Devon Dudley's not giving us the entire context of what might have been a conversation. This is what I thought in my head. Something like Devon being like, well, you know, JR, basketball is always going to be a black man's sport.
Yeah.
You know that. And then Jim Ross like, well, Devon, wrestling's always going to be a white man's sport. That's the only way I can almost imagine, without Jim Ross being just a racist, something being said like that. And it's just like, I don't.
Devon said something along the lines of Jim said something like he didn't like him because of his skin color or something like that.
It's like that just.
But where's, and again, that's inexcusable to say to someone. If
very much, yeah.
But what is the rest of the context?
Yes,
what is Jim Ross? Because Jim Ross hasn't come out and said anything about it as far as I know.
Not that I'm aware
But
of.
what's the rest of the context?
What's the rest of the context? And does this point, or could this potentially lead to a much bigger issue that might be ready to be exposed? That we, like with how big of a racist could Vince McMahon be?
Yeah.
And how racist could Kevin Dunn? Could Jim Ross?
That is another jackass. It should be. He should not have been allowed in
the
wrestling ring.
Yeah, you ain't no joke about that whatsoever.
Kevin Dunn was, and I don't think he's working for him anymore, but he was just.
Well, Kevin Dunn, basically, his dad, he basically was going to be a lifer with the company because his dad saved a bunch of
tapes or something.
Yeah.
Corny's talked about it a lot, but here's the thing: Cornette has been accused of having said some racist things from time to time.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard about it.
This happened a couple of years ago when he was still working for NWA. He was in a match. Or he was commentating a match, I think it was with Trevor Murdoch. I don't know if you know who that is or not. And he said something along the lines of he's so tough, you could strap a bucket of chicken on him and let him run through Ethiopia or some shit like that.
Oh my God.
And even when I heard Corny say it, I'm like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, right.
Like, even I was a little bit like,
Yeah, exactly. What the hell? And
actually, Cornette did get called out for that, and I think they ended up terminating him from NWA for that one.
Yeah.
Which that is kind of a messed up thing to say.
Yeah, it is a messed up thing to say. But then again, knowing Corny, was he saying it as a way to get back at somebody? Because I tell you what, Jim Cornette is so witty about he could come up with something that just.
I think he was playing heel commentator.
Ah, okay.
And he said stupid things. It was really stupid of him to say.
Yeah.
But
especially, definitely something that he should have thought a little bit better about in this environment we live in right now. So
because you really have to censor yourself in this day and age and what you say and stuff like that, which is a shame. I would never condone racism in any shape, form, or fashion. I don't believe in it. I never have. I grew up in predominantly black neighborhoods my whole life. I've had a lot of black friends my entire life. I don't condone racism in any shape, form, or fashion, but sometimes people just need to learn to take a fucking joke.
Yeah, that right there hits the nail on the head. It's just sometimes if we can laugh at racism, whether it be a joke made against a white person, a joke made against a black person or Hispanic or Oriental, if we can laugh at it and just not get butthurt over it, there's no power there over you. There's no power. There's no power there.
I mean, I am one of the worst. I'm one of the worst reverse racist people I know, because I have my entire life been one of those people where I look at a situation or look at something, and I'm like, fucking white people, man.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, we do a lot of dumb shit. Like when you look at the level of dumbassery, most of the time white people are at the top of it. Like skydiving, parachuting, bungee jumping, that's all white people stuff right there.
When it comes to taking chances and doing things like that, white people do take the cake when it comes to taking chances on a lot of stuff.
And I always say, I have black people tendencies. Like, I'm not jumping off of a bridge.
Yeah.
I don't care if there is a big ass rubber band attached to me. I'm not doing it.
Right. Yeah.
But again, I think, and I guess this is just my old school mentality, I think people just need to calm down.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things.
And not just in professional wrestling. Like The whole area just needs to calm down, learn to take a joke. If somebody says something that pisses you off or offends you, let it go, let it run off your back, tell the person they're an asshole, and just go on about your day.
And racism, whether it be white people inflicting it, or whether it be black people inflicting it, or whether it be Hispanics inflicting it, it's not two or three wrongs don't make a right. No. And it's like, there for a while, in the world of professional boxing, it was predominantly not black dominated. Mm-hmm. And it might still be black dominated maybe to a certain point. But
I haven't watched boxing in a while.
But I wonder if a lot of that had the fact to do with Don King.
Probably.
Being he might have been racist himself and wanted to promote a lot of black boxers, and stuff of that nature. But it's like.
But here's the thing, and taking it into other sports, basketball has been predominantly black my whole life.
Mine too.
The majority of my favorite basketball players are black, save for guys like John Stockton and Larry Bird.
Yeah, Larry Bird, I like him. Yeah.
I was always like watching guys like Jordan, Pippen, Magic Johnson, Shaq, Kobe. Watching these guys play, I always got more enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
Now, Larry Bird, he was one of the baddest white boys to ever play it.
Yeah, he was, actually.
But still, it's a predominantly black person's game. I have no problem against it. I don't care. I don't watch basketball anymore because I honestly think it's gone to hell.
Yeah, especially...
But during, the height of the Bulls dynasty...
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I watched it as much as I could.
Yeah. And, touching on that subject of basketball, you got what's been going on with the WNBA with the Caitlin Clark girl, and it's just like, and they're just all these black female athletes, and a lot of them just throwing hissy fits, cheap shots at her, and it's just like, okay, it's not racist, people. It's just the fact that Caitlin Clark is just such a damn good player.
Yeah.
Y'all need to just drop the bullshit and just play and just go, because Caitlin Clark has brought more attention to the WNBA than it has probably ever received in its history.
More positive attention.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because there's also this thing going now where there's some WNBA players saying, well, we want to make as much as the NBA players or we're not going to play. You're not going to draw as much as the NBA players.
If they want to make the contracts that the NBA players playing, then by God, y'all better get your asses behind Caitlin Clark, and y'all better start putting on some damn good games. You better put butts in seats.
You have to have that star power from one person to draw people to watching it. Because in the 90s, undisputedly, it was Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, yes.
In the early 2000s, you had guys like Shaq and Kobe.
Yeah, Shaq, Kobe, and LeBron came later on. Yeah, I know.
To me, he's a freaking joke. But there are people out there who love LeBron. Hey, more power to you. I don't watch him. But he right now is the face of the NBA.
Yeah.
You have to have, like in professional wrestling, you have to have that face in your sport that's going to draw that attention. Could it be Caitlin Clark? Who knows? Could it be Angel Reese? Who knows? But stop bitching and put in the legwork.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're not working hard, but you need to do something.
Exactly. Which brings us to, going back to wrestling and the racism in wrestling, or the supposed racism in wrestling. We'll say, you talked about Bobby Lashley and his lack of charisma, his lack of skill on the mic being predominantly the reason why he didn't get nowhere near the push that people say he deserved. Mm-hmm. Well, Ahmed Johnson, I liked Ahmed back in the day. I thought he was the character was great.
Yeah.
He was a great, but apparently he was not a good worker. He was dangerous.
Yeah.
He's almost like another Ultimate Warrior when it comes to just being dangerous. And it's like, well,
they said he was a lot like the Warrior. He was a lot like Vader, who was just snug and dangerous.
Yeah. So it's like, well, there's reasons why some people don't get the pushes, and that was for Ahmed Johnson. That's why he didn't get no more push after a while, because people get fed up, people get hurt even, and it's like
he kicked the shit out of Ron Simmons, and lacerated his liver or something like that, and then or bruised a kid, something like that. Like he did legitimate damage to one of his internal organs, and Ron Simmons, who was known as Farouk at the time, he was out for quite some time with that.
You know, and if there's any like serious racism that we could probably talk about, you would think somebody like Ron Simmons, Farouk, would probably have done. He may have even said something. I just don't know, but I don't think he's ever really said anything.
Now, have there been racist gimmicks? Yes.
Oh yeah, there's been racist.
I have
gimmicks.
a couple in mind. Even though he's considered a legend, Wahoo McDaniels, Chief Wahoo. I don't know if you know who that is.
I don't know.
He was portrayed as a Native American character. I don't think he was Native American at all. And probably one of the most egregious ones. When Chavo Guerrero was made into Kerwin White. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I don't think I do. I remember when Chavo, I remember him having that stupid donkey doing that.
No. What that in and of it, that's racist too. But no, he denounced his Mexican heritage, dyed his hair like platinum blonde.
Oh my gosh.
And started going by the name Kerwin White. He would come out to the ring driving a golf cart. He was in polos and like, you know, I hate to say it because of what I'm wearing, but he was in like polos and khaki shirts and or khaki pants, and he was like trying to be a white guy. To me, that was pretty damn racist. And then you had the hell was it? The Mexicools.
The Mexicools.
Again, the WWF. It was Psychosis. I think it was Super Crazy and Juventud Guerrera coming out to the ring on, God help me, a lawnmower.
Oh my God.
So have there been racist gimmicks? Yes. Is there a slight history of racism in professional wrestling?
Yes, it
probably
is.
Yes.
You know, here recently I've been watching many times, and when Brock Lesnar and Eddie Guerrero had their little feud, you know, there was that segment where Brock Lesnar came out with the sombrero, and then he had a mariachi band in the ring, and he's like, "Uno, dos, tres," and it was just like, I mean, but at the same time, you know, when things like that are done, they're racist, but sometimes it's also
I don't think it's. You know, I don't think it's meant to necessarily be considered racist.
Yeah,
I think they're just trying to draw heat.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, is it cheap heat? Yes.
Yeah, it's very cheap heat because they're being racist. They're kind of making fun of a culture.
Yeah.
You know, and I think
it's definitely cheap heat, and I'm glad to see in this landscape you don't see as much of that, because I'm all for getting heat as long as it's legitimate heat. Like again, when Hulk Hogan turned heel at Bash at the Beach '96. Right. That was legitimate heat. That was a story.
Yeah.
And it progressed. So that kind of heat to me is good. But when you're just doing it to get a pop of cheap heat, like the sombrero and that stuff, yeah. I don't really care for that. Because again, I'm not one for making fun of someone's culture or their race and like that. But, you know, at the time, I've seen it from all angles. I've watched professional wrestling for 30 plus years now. So I've kind of seen it from all angles. So
and then there's an infamous segment that Vince McMahon did with John Cena in front of Booker T and Jacqueline, I think her name was.
Was it Jacqueline or was it Charmel?
It could have been Charmel.
I think it was his wife.
Okay, and then, you know, he come up to old John Cena like, "What's good in the hood?" And, you know, and then after John Cena talks, he was like, "Keep it up, my and it's just like right in front. It'd be one thing if it was just them two, but it was right in front of Booker T and his wife, and it's just like, once again, it makes you wonder. Even though he didn't use the hard R version, he used the the A. It's still.
Here's the thing. This has never been outright said. I honestly kind of think that might have been a rib on Booker T.
It could have been.
And it goes back to an incident that happened in WCW.
Oh, really?
Harlem Heat was doing a promo, and Booker was cutting a promo on Hulk Hogan, and he says, "Hulk Hogan, we're coming for you.
Yes, I know.
And but
what you're talking
you
about.
immediately see that look of regret, that oh shit look on Booker T's face.
And that's when
So there-
Sister
there-
Sherry was their
Yeah.
manager. Yes, I know.
So there has been some speculation that was kind of a rib on Booker T. Was it dumb? Yes.
I didn't know about that, but yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
It's very possible it could have been a very distasteful rib.
Very distasteful.
but a
But
rib
professional wrestling has always done distasteful ribs.
Yeah, there's always been distasteful ribs done in the world of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
and that's actually a good point. There
But yeah,
might have been a
I
rib.
have heard that story that was because Vince McMahon, even though he was the owner of the company, was notorious for ribbing his talent. And I have heard the story that was a rib on Booker T, just to kind of get that look on Booker's face, like, did he just say this shit?
because Booker and Charlene or
Charmel.
Charmel, they did have of course it could be acting,
Yeah.
if it's not, but it could also be a little bit like shock. Did he say that for?
Yeah.
What the hell did he do? So it was like yeah. So it just
But again, I mean,
And-
if you look hard enough, there's aspects of racism in nearly every facet.
and near every facet, nearly everywhere. And let's talk about the you talk about the foreign heel. Well, Mr. Fuji is probably a great example of that.
Yeah.
He was like a heel manager
Mhm.
for a long time, and then he's the heel manager for Yokozuna, who is playing a Japanese villain, but he's actually a Samoan for real. isn't he?
He's
So-
part of the Samoan dynasty.
Yeah, so
He's actually from like San Francisco or something.
Yeah, so Yokozuna, who could legit pass, I think, just about for a Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
For obvious reasons, but being a Samoan, playing a Japanese villain, managed by a Japanese man. I think Mr. Fuji's Japanese.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
he might be Polynesian also. I can't remember if he's Japanese or not.
he may not be actually real Japanese.
But here's the thing with that, especially with Yokozuna, he got over it.
Yeah, he did. He got over.
He
big
did
time.
portray the foreign heel, but he got over
He
it.
got over big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. You're right about that. He did get over because he won the world title not once but twice.
Yeah.
So
Once off of Brett, once off Hogan.
yeah, and so
So yeah, he did get over it.
he did get over big time.
But again, going back to the foreign heel trope, if you go to Japan, with the white guys over there, they're kind of treated as the foreign heels
Right.
over there.
So
so
it's kind of like what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah.
So it whether it be, and not to mention you've got professional wrestling in the United States is predominantly white.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the country is white.
Yeah.
But you go to Japan, obviously New Japan Wrestling is going to be dominated predominantly by
Mhm.
Japanese. You go down to Mexico or to South America, the Latin countries, the luchadors and that particular culture is going to be dominated by what? Mexicans
Mexican.
and Latin.
it's a product of its
Yeah,
environment.
it's a product of its environment. Exactly. So it's just one of those things.
That's almost like going to Great Britain and watching professional wrestling and expecting Americans over there. You're not really going to see it.
You're not going to see
Wrestling is definitely a product of its environment. Now, would I like to see more minorities and whatnot giving a better shot in professional wrestling? Yes, but you have to have the tools and the talent to do so.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to have the tools and talent. They can't be pushed just for the sake of wanting, like a black world champion or a Hispanic world champion or a Japanese world champion. If you get a Japanese world champion, like he was a Hispanic man, but this was back in the late '70s. Pedro Morales.
Yeah.
He was the WWF or WWF
Mhm.
world champion. So it does happen. I mean,
Yeah,
but
it does happen.
But it's like it has to happen organically.
Yeah.
It can't be forced. So.
Pedro, actually, my wife is related to him. Pedro
For
was
real?
Puerto Rican. Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah, my wife, she's related to Carlos Colon and Pedro Morales.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So yeah, they're not bloodline related, but I'm actually related to a couple of legends through marriage because my wife's family is related to both of them.
Oh, that's pretty
which
cool.
is kind of cool. But,
Yeah, it's very cool actually. Anything else?
I think we've pretty much covered it. I mean,
I think Teddy Long has accused Ric Flair, I think, of racism.
Yeah. Teddy Long, he said his stint in WCW, he did experience a lot of racism, but he's also said on the flip side, coming to WWE, WWF, WWE, he said he's never experienced it. He said he was never treated with anything but respect from the guys.
Wow.
He's real good friends with guys like The Undertaker, a lot of the legends. He said he never experienced anything like that. And even Ron Simmons, he said, yes, in WCW he experienced it, but coming over, he had his career.
And if you think about
he never really had anything negative to say about Vince, the WWF, the people that run it. So
maybe there may not be anything inherently racist about Vince at all. It might just be circumstances, and like the Booker incident.
A rib, but in poor taste.
A very poor, tasteful rib. So, but going back to what you're saying about Ron Simmons and Teddy Long in WCW and the racism they said there, if you think about it, it almost makes a little bit more sense because that's a good old boys.
And that's always what it was perceived as, especially being in Atlanta.
Yeah,
they always said it was a good old boy, the good old boys wrestling promotion.
So,
I can't remember what his name was, but there was a wrestler who was in the WWF, was a black wrestler, who went down to WCW, and he was told by someone who was at WWF who had been to WCW, don't do that. He said they are racist as fuck down there.
Damn.
I can't remember what who the wrestler was, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
But I mean, I guess I could give WCW a little bit of credit because Ron Simmons is credited as being the first ever world heavyweight champion in black world heavyweight champion in professional wrestling. So they did try to break that mold.
Yeah.
But
that was even before Bischoff even came on.
Yeah. I think Jim Herd might have been running things because he defeated Vader. It's when they had like two world champions because it was at a time where the company was kind of in flux because they were still part of the NWA, but they were trying to branch out on their own. So they had basically two world championships. They had the NWA International World Championship.
Rick Rude was actually that.
Yeah, and then you had the WCW World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah.
And Vader at the time was the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, and Ron Simmons beat him. So, me?
I know, right? Exactly.
I really, even today, I don't like that dual world championship thing.
I don't either, not really.
Currently your two world champions in WWE is
because they got the Universal title and then they got the world title, right?
Yeah, you got the WWE championship because you had the Universal and then you had the WWE championship. Roman Reigns during his reign of terror, he had both belts. Well, when Bray Wyatt died, he ended up giving the Universal title to Bray's fiance JoJo, and it was basically just rechristened the WWE Undisputed Championship.
Gotcha.
But now you have the World Heavyweight Championship, and that's CM Punk. So you have the two world champions. I've never cared for that in WWE. I don't know why they do it.
The only time I would really ever truly just accept that, and it still wasn't really the best, was when they had the brands. They had the two different brands with Raw and SmackDown, and you had either the WWE Championship on one of them, and you had the World Heavyweight Championship on another. But even then,
but in this day and age, like you see Cody Rhodes on Raw, you see CM Punk on SmackDown, and vice versa.
Yeah, so you don't need two world titles.
You don't need two world titles. You just need one.
You need one world title. Maybe an Intercontinental Championship, maybe a United States Championship, maybe a European Championship. You could have different sub-championships for all your different workers and potentialities of people that can, but you don't have, but only one world title. Yeah. One World Heavyweight Champion. That's it.
Because now you have the Women's Intercontinental Championship, you have the Women's United States United States Championship, you have the Women's Tag Team Championship, you have the WWE Tag Team Champions, you have the World Tag Team Champions. It's overinflated with too many belts, if you ask me.
Yeah, way too overinflated.
So, and then they had the 24/7 Championship, which I think they've since done away with. They were trying to redo almost like a hardcore thing, and But that brings me to one more black person. Now he was an NWA World Heavyweight Champion in TNA. but you have R-Truth.
Yeah.
He's had a very long career with the WWE. He's been a multiple-time tag team champion with various wrestlers. He's never been the world champion, but everybody seems to love him. Like in the locker room and whatnot. Everybody has a great relationship with him. He's probably the only guy that's ever gotten Brock Lesnar, of all people, to break on multiple occasions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, he'll be out there, Ron will be cutting a promo on Brock, and Brock will just bug out laughing. Is that character strong enough to be a world champion? Not necessarily.
Right.
Good mid-carder. But he's been there a really long time. And again, he's another one of the black wrestlers that I've never heard him have really a negative thing to say about WWE.
Right.
He has said some negative things about his time in TNA, though, where he was a world champion, but he wasn't happy there.
Yeah.
Because he was in a stable with Conan and at the Road Dogg. He wasn't called Road Dogg at the time, called 3 Live Crew and stuff like that. But he was never really happy there, which is why he went back to the WWE. Could they do something more with him? In his younger days, yes, because he's in his 50s now, so it's a little bit late to try and push him on anything.
Right.
But he could have been a good, solid mid-card performer because he was very athletic. He had a great look. He could crack people up on the mic because he did it to Brock on several occasions. He did it to Triple H on quite a few occasions.
Yeah.
So, but he's another one of those ones. I don't necessarily think it was racism. I think it was just underutilization.
Yeah, probably. Underutilization, right. Probably from poor booking and things of that nature, yeah.
But I would like to think as a nation, we're not totally out of the woods when it comes to racism. But I think we're seeing the light,
right
through the trees. I don't think in any nation around the world you'll ever be fully out of racism.
No, because
you're always going to be able to see the light through the trees.
Yeah, you always need to see the light through the trees, and to use Japan as an example, while it could be racist, but it's also from the Japanese point of view, they're very hospitable to visitors. But they're very reserved about people coming in to their country to be citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it doesn't matter if they're black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter.
They have very, very strict immigration policies.
They do, and I actually kind of tip my hat to that. But at the same time, is it racist born or is it just a strong nationalistic spirit?
And I think that's where a lot of it. I think that's where we get confused as people and whatnot. We take what is nationalism and perceive it as racism.
Yeah, a lot of people probably do mistake that.
Yeah.
And so, but now if this was Japan 100 years ago, it probably would be both nationalism and racism because of the Japan where they were at as far as being an empire. But nowadays it would just be more or less strong nationalist sentiment, as far as their immigration policy, which really, to be honest, every country on Earth should be like that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you wouldn't welcome anybody that was serious about becoming a citizen, but you want to try to protect your own country's culture from being, overtaken by.
I think in a way, this country has lost its edge because we used to really only accept the best of the best.
Yeah.
That's why for such a long time we were like the biggest, the best, the strongest. Because if you were trying to come here from another country, you had to bring something to the table. You had to be able to produce. You had to be able to say, this is what I can do this is what I can do and I can bring to the table for your country and why I want to be here.
Right.
I think we've kind of lost that as a nation.
We have because we've gotten too lax and too accepting of other people's, like, if you come from, say, if you come from India and you want to come here, but you want to become an American, and that's fine, but don't bring, there's certain aspects of every culture that we don't necessarily want to bring in, but if you want to assimilate into the culture, assimilate into American culture, even though you come from India, you'll always be an Indian, but now you're an American.
Yeah.
And
it's like Carlos Mencia once said. I don't know if you remember this comedian or not. He said one of the reasons why America was always like so dominant in the Olympics is because we had the best black people playing basketball. You know, the best Mexican athletes weren't in Mexico; they were here. Because if you used to look, if you looked at our Olympic teams, it was a melting pot. It was every culture. You had white, you had black, you had Asian, you had every feasible race you could. The best were always here, which is why we dominated so much.
Well, you know, like Jim Thorpe, the famous football athlete. I think he competed in the Olympics and did fantastic in the Olympics.
Yeah.
You know, and he was, I think, a legitimate Native American.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was an Indian.
Yeah.
An American Indian, I guess.
American
you know,
Indian.
Native Indian.
Native American.
Yeah. So, and it's just like, and you had Jesse Owens, who was the famous black Olympic runner,
Yeah.
American runner, who, you know, went over to the 1936 Olympics and, you know,
punked out Adolf Hitler.
yeah, punked out the Third Reich right there on the world stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but as far as pro wrestling just being just you hear some people
Blatantly racist.
probably not.
Nah.
I mean, have there been specks of racism yeah, obviously, but to say that they would deliberately have like this racist conspiracy to keep the minorities from being able to, it's like, no, not really.
I don't think they're racist. I think they're capitalist.
That's probably
They the only color they see is green.
that's it.
And in all honesty, that to me,
They
that's
don't-
how you should run a business.
That's
really,
how you should run a business. You don't see skin color.
you
You
see,
see color of money.
Yeah,
The color of money.
and
So-
that's and I think that's what I would say that's where 90% of it boils down to.
because if you think about it, that's why The Rock was so popular. The Rock had talent in ring. He had name recognition. He had family legacy. He had skills on the mic,
Mhm.
and people loved him.
Yeah,
So you have all that going for you. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter that he's a mixed African American and Samoan. He became world champion many times over. So I mean,
and another story of one is the Junkyard Dog when he was in
oh yeah,
when he was in Mid South. Like Bill Watts, even though it was a smaller promotion, Bill Watts pushed him to the moon.
Yeah, Jim Clark Dog's another one. You're right. I forgot about.
Now
Jim
he
Clark
did
Dog.
come to the WWF at the time, but he didn't make as big an impact because it was kind of the big fish in the how's it go, the big fish in a small pond or some shit like that.
Or maybe he was too small of a fish in a big pond.
Something
like that. Yeah.
But I mean, at the time, like he comes into the WWE, WWF at the time, and it was already like chock. It was a big chock full of roster, even in the '80s. So it would have been hard for him to really break that glass ceiling. But when he was in the smaller pond in Mid South, Bill Watts pushed him to the moon,
Yeah.
and Bill Watts, Junkyard Dog, wasn't really the most athletic in far of terms of wrestling moves. So Bill Watts was able to accent what he could do, which was JYD was killer on a mic.
Yeah.
He had charisma, and he tried to showcase the moves that Junkyard Dog could do to make him look good.
Yeah.
So that was a case of taking a person's potential shortcomings and working with them. But on the flip side, going back to Bobby Lashley, Bobby could move. He had a great look, but the biggest thing is always going to be your charisma.
Exactly.
How are you going to get over and resonate with these fans? And to me, Bobby Lashley just never had it.
Right.
And I know we harp on Bobby a lot, but that's, to me, especially in the modern times, that's where a lot of people are a name that gets brought up a lot when that debate about professional wrestling and racism still comes up.
Yeah.
Because, well, Bobby didn't get the push he deserved. Did he really deserve it?
Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, did he really deserve the push?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, that's true. That's
And
very true.
and then again, but for almost 5 years, in modern times, the face of the company was technically a minority. It was Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
He's Samoan.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that racist? Is that good business? What is it?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can look at Roman Reigns and tell that dude is not a white guy.
Oh yeah.
He's very obviously Samoan. The Rock, again, one of the biggest names in the company. One of the biggest names in the world.
Yeah. Exactly.
Where does, like, the accusations of racism stop? And people, and this is a very big buzzword, when does personal accountability come into it?
That's it.
When do you acknowledge your own shortcomings?
That's true. And we don't know what Bobby Lashley might have been like behind the scenes 100%. He might have been a jerk maybe at times. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean,
I've never really heard anybody say anything bad about him. But to me, that was always the thing, is he just lacked charisma.
He just lacked charisma. When you lack charisma in a charisma-driven industry,
that's like trying to be a salesman when you can't sell a damn thing.
Exactly. That's like, yeah, if you're not slick but talking with people, you can't be a car salesman.
Yeah.
Or you can't be, you can't go door to door selling a product or something. You can't do that. You know, you
have to have that gift of gab. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to make a connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And so, yeah. But
I think we've pretty well covered this subject.
I think we've pretty well covered this subject pretty good. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we got some more videos to come. Just stay tuned.
Hit the like button, of course.
Yeah, of course. And again, if you have any suggestions on topics or lists you want us to cover,
down in the
comments, make sure you go back, check out some of our older videos. It's been a hot minute since we've been posting, but hopefully we'll get back into a little bit more regular schedule. Be cool, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole that